Chapter 141, Flame of Chaos. Cain, located in Eastern Europe, was the largest country by landmass in Europe besides Russia, formed when the Soviet dissolved in 1991. Because of the fertile soil, Cain was the third largest grain exporting country in the world, renowned as the granary of Europe. At the same time, Vate took the crown for the top 10 City of the Beauties, selected by the World Popular Tourists Digest. Food and beauty. It was a beautiful place. But the smokes of the war cast a gloom in this poorly trained place. The root of the disaster had been buried during the hasty revolution in 1991. January 9, 2014, a conflict under the name Civil Uprising led the country into political unrest. The night of March 29, 2014, Crimea forwarded their clocks by 2 hours, officially using Moscow time. Like a flag, cities in the east soon followed. East and Lugansk declared independence, which officially erupted the civil war. Precisely speaking, I am a Belarusian, but I spent my childhood in Cain. My father was a Soviet soldier and met my mom in Vate. Nick had a cigarette in his mouth while holding the steering wheel. This morning, Jiang Chen left the Premier Hotel and took a taxi to the agreed-upon location to meet Nick. The pickup truck was bought from the local second-hand store. They were driving on the highway to East. "So you were part of the government force?" Jiang Chen casually asked. "You could say that before." Nick twitched his mouth. "But the formation is already gone, so you could say I am a deserter." "The government force is weak." "Really weak?" Nick blew out a smoke ring, and he looked perplexedly at the truck that just passed by. It was filled with wounded soldiers from the front line. The soldiers' combat abilities are all over the place, and the officials are corrupted to the bone. What's more important is that no one wants to fight for this country. Cain East was the previous border between Soviet and NATO, and within the armory there were hundreds of tons of bombs, mines, bullets, and other firearms left by the previous Soviet military regions. As of now, the Cain army was still using the free firearms, and because of this, the Cain national defense industry has regressed to a frightening point. Cain military's Phoenix, National Defense Battalion, even dragged the 122 howitzer used as a salvo for years in Vate onto the front line. The armored cash truck was currently being used as an armored vehicle. At the same time, the lack of military funding also decreased the soldiers' will to fight. A company commander's salary is similar to Kazakhstan's soldier's salary, which is equivalent to 1,500 RMB, not even comparable to a waitress in a Han restaurant. The salary was not enough to sustain a living. The soldiers were poorly trained. Selling the weapons in storage illegally to make money became a trend within the army. It was satirical that a lot of weapons were being destroyed in the front line, and without the ability to replenish the equipment, an ordinary citizen could still buy an armored vehicle for 10,000 USD. It was the current status quo of the Cain army. The civil force, however, was well equipped and had high morale. They possessed potent firepower and armored force. The war lasted for almost a year, and the civil force did not once experience ammo shortages. The large-scale bombing consistently left the Cain army scrambling. Based on reports, the 36,000 civil forces possessed 8,000 advanced Russian heavy weapons. Also based on U.S. satellite, troops stationed in the Russian Cain border assisted the civil force at all time. "If everyone fought for the country, I won't be here." Jiang Chen shrugged. "At least for those people with ability, let them fight for the force they could swear their allegiance for. If weapons could be bought, then humans shouldn't be difficult at all. Although in principle, an active soldier of a country could not be sold to someone as mercenaries, but that was only in principle. If tank could be sold, what else couldn't be?" Another thing to note was that the reason why Jiang Chen didn't buy a tank partially because the future tanks did not consume oil. Rather, it used a large fuel rod similar to the power armor, while levitating tanks used batteries. Another reason being that the modern age armor was way too thin. The material used was not even remotely comparable. Without exaggeration, The armored vehicle in the Fishbone base was comparable in armor strength with Frankberg Primary Tank 2A6. Of course, the discussion doesn't include the effect of impact angle on armor penetration. Swear allegiance. It's not about being worthy or not, no one is willing to fight, but the commission you are willing to pay is attractive, and the 10-year limit is not too harsh. At least if they fight for you, they could retire in Europe with the money. Nick smiled. 1 million USD, enough to enjoy the rest of their life in comfort. The pickup truck drove relatively steadily on the highway. Black smoke could be faintly seen from afar. This place was fairly close to the front line, but this region was still considered safe. But then the car in front stopped. Traffic jam. Nick frowned and stopped the car as well. He put the cigarette butt in the ashtray as he got off and walked to the car in front. What happened in front? I don't know, the car in the front stopped, so I had to stop as well. A Slavic man stepped out of the car with a clueless expression on his face. The cars in the back slammed on their horns as they were trying to release their anger. The clueless people all got out of their cars and tiptoed to see what was happening up front. Okay, friends, don't be anxious. Please get back to your vehicle. The special force is taking care of a small problem. Please remain calm. A soldier in camouflage walked front to front as he patted the car roof of each car, signaling people to stay calm. I want to know what happened in front. A chubby driver yelled out of his window. A bomb made a hole in the middle of the road, but it didn't detonate. To ensure that it will not blow you up when you drive by, we are trying to defuse it. The soldier shrugged as he leaned against the car. To be honest, his relaxed look certainly made people feel calm. He is lazy, sticking around in the safe area after reporting. I did that a few times, Nick half joked and half cursed. Seeing the young face, he felt like he saw the young him. Jiang Chen looked at him in surprise. He thought Nick was the type to be meticulous at all times. Because it was not worth fighting for. He thought about it, but he instantly understood. Is it common to see these bombs? Jiang Chen looked at the soldier slacking off as he asked Nick. Very common. Nick, who sat back in the car, lit another cigarette to waste time. Both sides are wasting Soviet firearms, but these things are well past their expiration date. Take the U tactical missile with only 10 years of service life. For example, once it leaves the launch pad, you don't even know where it will fly to. The soldier leaning against the car chatted with the driver with a smile on his face. He also took the cigarette passed to him. Jiang Chen's eyebrows twitched. He was worried about the ability of the Kane army. If it were these types of fools, he wouldn't want them even if they were free. Sensing Jiang Chen's concern, Nick smiled and spoke. Probably a new recruit. He could be an electrician yesterday, and today he was given a rifle to patrol the front line. Adjusting is hard. In this place, anything is possible. What about recruit training? Jiang Chen asked, dumbfounded. No money and no one wanted to do it. The guy we are going to find, Markinov, is a good guy. He will not use unqualified people to substitute good people. There are plenty of fighters in the Kane army. Take the army I was in, for example. Although 6 out of 10 were recruits, the remaining 4 were great people. Especially the guy from Cossack. His shooting was insane. Jiang Chen fell into a short silence as he thought about another problem. Right now, is he willing to bring the fighters in the army out? Why not? Nick shrugged. The war is not going to be swayed by 1 or 2 soldiers, especially since you are paying enough money. To the Markinov guy, Jiang Chen's bribe was also 1 million USD, payable in gold. The only thing he needed to do was to pick the right people, sign a few spots, and provide a few missing reports. Suddenly, a deafening explosion erupted from a distance. Thick smoke rose, and people watched the chaos from afar as they began to frighteningly curse. Some people took out their phones and started recording. The soldier was clearly stunned by the explosion as he looked blankly at the highway in front. After a long time, the soldier looked at the Kane driver that he just chatted with. Perhaps our comrades successfully detonated the bomb. The cars in the front began to move gradually. The danger was already alleviated. Regardless, a bomb could not blow up twice. Seeing this, Nick also started the car. The good thing was that there were not a lot of cars on the road to begin with, so it didn't cause a massive blockage. When they passed the frightening bomb hole, Jiang Chen saw traces of bloody remains. Looks like the Special Forces' method of detonation is quite unique. Hearing that, Nick cracked a smile. His words had a satirical tone. Special Force. The only force worthy of this name already defected to Russia. As the two chatted back and forth to kill time, a white van followed behind them. The tinted window blocked the scene within the vehicle. If Jiang Chen saw the person sitting in the passenger seat, he would have been shocked. The blonde, blue-eyed, gorgeously figured beauty, the same woman that chatted with him yesterday afternoon. The only difference was, the seductive exposed dress changed into a black trench coat, easier for combat. This is Silver Fox, target entered East. Roger, this is Vulture, continue with Plan B. Understood. The vibrant red lips carved a mischievous, demon-like smile. Chapter 142, Of course not. When they entered East's rural area, the road suddenly became rugged. Shambles completed the scenes along the street. At a glimpse, Jiang Chen even had the feeling he was in the apocalypse. Under the shambles, there were signs of life. The people without homes built temporary tent under the wreckages that were their homes and looked with vicious eyes at the caned soldiers. They continued forward as road conditions got even worse. Nick had to park beside a civilian building to give Markinov a call. It wasn't long until a soldier with a rifle found them. Boris, second lieutenant. The short-hair guy saw Jiang Chen and immediately saluted. General Markinov sent me to greet you. Jiang Chen told him his name and shook his hand. The hand was filled with calluses, which told the story that he was an experienced soldier. He retracted the hand and Boris nodded. Please follow me. He took a black suitcase out of the car and motioned for Jiang Chen and Nick to follow him. But what they didn't know was that approximately 400 meters away from where they parked, there was a body. The uniform and equipment were stripped, and the pupil dilated with a daunting blood hole on the forehead. Armored vehicles and tank wreckages were on the side of the road. It was a crossfire zone. On the desolate street, a silent girl walked by. She was covered in black, her thin lips exposed from under her hood. There was a guitar case behind her back, like a musician strolling across the ruins. She lifted the sleeve of her right hand, and a watch-like computer flashed faint lights. That was the EP. On the screen was a map of the area. Using waves to create tactical maps was one of the unbelievable functions of the EP. Yesterday at this time, she had already walked through the entire area. The blue dot on the map was the location of the sensor Jiang Chen carried. Am I here? Aisha mumbled while she walked to the half-torn residential apartment. It's really dangerous there. It got struck by a bomb only a few days ago, and it could fall any second. A refugee crawling on the side tried to warn the girl, but the girl only glanced at him before she took out a pistol. The refugee raised his hand in horror and moved back. Leave. Perhaps he understood Aisha's English, for the person moved back a few steps. Then, seeing that she had no intention to shoot, he fled right away. Seeing the irrelevant people leave, she retracted her pistol and carried the guitar box upstairs. Aisha agilely moved around the broken stairs as she effortlessly came to the top floor. Just like what she learned in the virtual reality training system. She opened the guitar box, took out the sniper rifle parts, and assembled the sniper skillfully. After some adjustments, Aisha took out a city camouflage and put it on her back. She lied on the dusty floor and set up the futuristic-looking ghost sniper rifle. Aisha ready. As if she was talking to herself, Aisha muttered on the ground. Wait for my order. Jiang Chen reached out to touch his ear and moved his wrist closer to his lips to whisper. Boris walked in front to lead the way. Nick followed and examined the surrounding without words. Jiang Chen looked rather relaxed, as if he did not understand that he was in the front line. The rough, muddy road had wooden boards lined up, 2 meters tall, along the side of the road, creating a temporary fence. In the forefront, this thing is used to obstruct the sniper's view or unexpected shots. How long? Jiang Chen scanned the tank stalled on the road as he casually asked Boris up front. Soon it's in front, Boris gave a vague answer. Oh, could I ask you a personal question? Jiang Chen walked up to him and smiled. Of course, as long as it doesn't involve sensitive information. Your position in the 92nd Mechanized Infantry is. From the calluses on his hands, this guy must be a great soldier. Currently Markinov General's personal guard. Boris' English was fluent. He could understand Jiang Chen's Han-accented English, which barely passes level 6 of the proficiency test. Oh, then you must be a good shooter. Jiang Chen looked at him quite surprised. Not bad. Boris didn't seem to want to continue on the topic, but he paused and then added, I am his nephew. The three continued for a bit longer, but at this time, Nick began scanning down the road, raised his eyebrows and then stopped. The quiet hymn abruptly interrupted. The 92nd Mechanized Infantry already pushed up this far. Of course not. Boris shrugged and said something the two didn't understand. Nick had the fastest reaction as he instantly reached for his waist. But Boris, clearly prepared, was one step ahead and pointed his rifle at him. I suggest you don't move. Not including the gun in my hand, there is one pointing at you hundreds of meters away, Boris said lightheartedly, but he was looking at Jiang Chen. Very sorry, Mr. Jiang, someone wants to talk with you. Who? Jiang Chen smiled with the same lighthearted tone. Obviously, this Boris was fake. Markinov probably did send someone here but got killed, and then substituted for this Boris. Although he was prepared for trouble, Jiang Chen didn't expect the trouble to not come from Markinov, but from a force he hasn't met before. The radio signal must have been intercepted. They are obviously not weak, but even knowing this, Jiang Chen's face remained emotionless as he looked at Boris with a bright smile. Boris didn't answer Jiang Chen's question as he looked at him slightly shocked. Mr. Jiang is not worried about your own safety. Safety? Why would I be worried about it? Jiang Chen pretended to be confused and shrugged. Since you want to kidnap me, wouldn't you guarantee my safety? Boris cracked a smile as he seemed to be intrigued by Jiang Chen's logic. Then he raised his left hand and made a gesture. A few people walked out from the shadows. Their skillful moves along with their professional positioning indicated that these people must be of the special forces. He looked at the unanimous Russian faces and recalled Nick saying Kane didn't have a special force. Jiang Chen had a sense of the identities of these people. Nick was tied up, but they were courteous enough not to do the same thing to Jiang Chen. Maybe from appearance, Jiang Chen didn't look like a dangerous figure. KGB. Jiang Chen tried to probe the question as he stared into Boris' eyes. No wonder he was a professional, his pupils didn't waver at all. Boris only smiled and didn't respond. Who we are is not important, handsome from the east. With a flirtatious tone, Jiang Chen heard a familiar voice behind him. The Broken Hand. Chapter 143, The Three Musketeers. It's you. Jiang Chen looked at the beauty walking towards him in astonishment. The tall figure, blonde and blue-eyed, was the same woman that chatted with him at the hotel. But the woman didn't respond to his shock, as she simply muttered to herself. Jiang Chen, male, 25. President of Future Technology, 99% shareholder of the company. Force unknown, suspected of high technology and research capabilities. Initial capital originated from gold. Used the UA middleman Robert to offload 11.24 tons of gold. The large quantity caused a sell-off in the UA gold exchange, which amounted to a consecutive 3 days drop up to 2%. Hearing the description by this beauty, Jiang Chen was startled. Wow, basically, they dug up my entire background overseas. Looks like you guys did a great job investigating me. Jiang Chen clapped and stared at her. And then, what do you plan to get out of me? I am not a scientist nor a spy, only a businessman. I don't have anything to give you. It would be odd if you are just here for the 1 million USD worth of gold. You don't look like you lack funding. Exactly, because you are a businessman. The canyon beauty smiled, the eyes in her deep eye sockets gazed at him. Don't you think your appearance is unfitting for your identity, Mr. Jiang Chen? That's a great point. Jiang Chen nodded while he acted as if he was thinking. At least Jobs or Bill Gates would not come to this place. Then, could you answer my confusion? She walked beside Jiang Chen and got slightly closer. Half smiling, she continued, the reason why you are here. Of course, but before that, could I know your name? Jiang Chen cooperatively raised his hands, just like passing through security. He let the graceful-looking hands search through his body as he said casually, Natasha. She smiled as she didn't find any weapons. She then grabbed his chin as if teasing him. Teeth looks clean. I thought hand agents hide poison in their tooth. Have you watched too many dramas? Jiang Chen rolled his eyes, not feeling tense at all. Also, I am not an agent. Natasha seems like a popular name. Nonchalantly shrugging, Natasha stared into his eyes mischievously. That's hard to say. Now, what's your reason for coming here? Are you representing yourself, your country, or the force behind you? Jiang Chen looked strangely at Natasha as he said helplessly, why do you agents always ask this question? I remember an UA citizen asking me this before. Don't change the subject, Natasha said coldly. I choose C. Natasha paused for a moment, as she was surprised by how direct Jiang Chen's response was. And then, even if I say I work for a force, what are you planning to do? I didn't threaten your national security. He made up a story without his heart skipping a beat. Life is like a show. It's mainly dependent on one's acting. Oh yeah, then we'll take you to a place. Once we are there, there will be experts discussing this problem with you. Natasha slightly moved away from Jiang Chen as she pressed the wireless headphone onto her ear. Package is retracted, requesting lift. Roger, this is Vulture, M171 deployed and on its way. Once the communication ended, she didn't say anything else but looked at Jiang Chen with a smile. What she didn't know was that the conversation between the guy with the code name, Vulture, was intercepted by the micro-communication chip in his ear. It was even translated into Han. Jiang Chen looked emotionlessly at Natasha, but his mind was spinning quickly. 5 Russian special forces or agents. Only Aisha herself, Nick is being controlled, and it would be impractical to take care of 5 experts altogether. He was waiting for an opportunity. Like how she practiced in the virtual reality training system, Aisha quietly aimed through the scope. The center of the cross was Boris' face. Something unexpected happened as the 3 of them stopped. 4 figures dashed out from the shadows, while Jiang Chen's companion was taken as hostage. Aisha slightly moved the gun as she aimed at the woman, getting closer to Jiang Chen. When the canyon beauty approached Jiang Chen and touched him all over, Aisha's eyebrows uncontrollably twitched, her delicate finger repeatedly rubbed against the trigger. The Ghost sniper rifle was advanced at every level compared to the technology in this age. Seeing Jiang Chen was in danger, Aisha was out of sort. She took a deep breath as she calmly decreased the magnification on the scope and pressed a button on the side of the rifle. A line of blue letters appeared on top of the sight. Wide-range life detection system activated. Immediately, the blue waves scanned across the field in the scope, and a few red dots were marked. The function was rather useless as most survivors, who had the ability to, would use a life signal jammer to prevent their location from being detected. But in the modern world without such technology, the function was like cheating. 2 snipers, Aisha raised her eyebrows confused. 300 meters away, there was a sniper in camouflage on top of an apartment building. 1,500 meters away, another sniper lied on top of a roof in the factory. Both locked onto the 7 people standing on the rural road. Same force, didn't look like it. The 2 snipers didn't wear anything that revealed their identity. Aisha only hesitated for a second before she made the decision. She put her finger to her ear and said calmly, 2 snipers. Do friendly forces exist? Within the sight, she saw Jiang Chen slightly shake his head. Then Aisha asked, requesting permission to kill. Within the cross, Jiang Chen was speaking with Natasha as he nodded. Understood. Yesha closed the microphone, put her right hand on the rifle again, and positioned her finger on the trigger. The cross sight moved, and she first locked onto the sniper 300 meters away. The person did not have the slightest sense that he was someone else's prey. He had his eyes locked on the scope. Typically speaking, snipers would be absolutely safe before they exposed themselves by firing. Of course, that was under normal circumstances. Bang! The gunshot was faint under the influence of the silencer. The bullet accurately penetrated through the head of the sniper as his skull cracked like a watermelon. She didn't stop her sight on his body as she quickly aimed at the target 1,500 meters out. Because the distance was relatively far, she opened the wind speed calculation device and adjusted the magnification on the scope. Wind speed 4 km/h, distance 1,500 meters, Aisha murmured as she pulled the trigger again. Chapter 144, Chaos. Target down. A smile emerged on Jiang Chen's face. For some reason, Natasha felt unsettled by the Asian man's smile. At the same time, in an underground military facility 1,000 meters away, Dagger 1 lost connection. Are they Russian snipers? Call Guard 1, initiate Plan B. Guard 1 received, as you wish, Commander. The M-171 helicopter appeared in the air. The camouflage green had a frightening vibe to it. I remembered that you said in the news that Russian soldiers haven't passed the border. Jiang Chen used a questioning tone. NATO said that too. Also, I never said I was Russian. Natasha shrugged. Take a trip with me. Trust me, if you can prove that you are only a merchant, we'll let you go. What makes you think I believe you? Jiang Chen shrugged and looked into the sky. Crossing the border just for me, you are not going to let me go easily. But you don't have any other choice, Boris interrupted, laughing. Don't I? Jiang Chen maintained his gaze at 75 degrees, looking at the sky. The violent turbulence forced his eyes to narrow. Then, hiding under the noise of the approaching helicopter's rotor blade, at an angle Natasha couldn't see, he pretended to scratch his ear and opened his mouth. Shoot the fuel tank. Roger, Aisha's calm and comforting answer transmitted into his ear. Bang! The bullet hit the fuel tank. But at the same time, a trail of fire erupted into the air and struck at the helicopter from a building nearby. It simultaneously hit the helicopter's engine. Jiang Chen was truly lost seeing what just happened. The ghost sniper has a barrel this big. RPG. Damn it. Like a mosquito slapped out of the air, the helicopter began to slant and dive unexpectedly to the ground. Natasha's first reaction was Jiang Chen's men as she quickly aimed at Jiang Chen. But at the same time, gunfire suddenly burst out of the wooden shack across the road. Bullets left a trail of dust and debris on the concrete floor and wooden board. Jiang Chen dove for cover on the side. The unsuspecting KGB agent under fire also tried to find cover while firing back, but the other side was obviously prepared. They had the advantage in both firepower and number of people. Natasha gritted her teeth, hooked her arm around Jiang Chen's neck, and hid behind the cover while pulling out the pistol with her other hand. Is it your people? No, if it is, why the fuck am I hiding? Jiang Chen was also in an awkward position. When the bullet fired over, his also had a daunting feel. But the feeling he felt on his back did feel good. The advantage of Slavic people. Then shut up. Natasha maintained this flirtatious position while firing back a few shots to test the waters. But immediately, a wave of bullets met her and forced her to take cover. What the fuck, you have been asking the questions. Do you need me to shoot her? Aisha's voice transmitted into his ear, her tone sounded subtle. Jiang Chen immediately shook his head. He hasn't figured out the situation here. If Natasha is down, it would only further complicate the situation. The first thing was to wait for them to finish fighting before taking action. But with the head shake, the back of his head scratched on something he shouldn't have scratched. Natasha's grim eyes immediately looked over. What are you doing? My neck is feeling weird. Jiang Chen forced an awkward laugh as he glanced at the arm hooked around his neck. To his surprise, Natasha didn't continue to be angry. Instead, she smiled dubiously. Yesterday afternoon, I gave you the opportunity to take advantage of me. Now you are interested. Or are you a masochist? Yesterday afternoon. I am curious if I agreed, what would you do? Nothing. Natasha's voice was light. I'll give you a needle when you try to use your needle. Jiang Chen forced a smile when he heard her words. Few almost agreed to it. He leaned against the softness. While still nervous, he didn't think the feeling was too terrible. Jiang Chen asked Natasha, who continually peeked out to fire back, You seem suppressed by their firepower. Are you not worried? Worried? Natasha looked at him oddly and then scoffed. The artillery support at the border was not there for decoration. Just as the voice died, a screeching sound broke across the sky. Boom! The explosion lifted the already torn wooden shack into the sky. The opponent's firepower immediately weakened. Then, a few trails of white smoke flew in the sky. The explosions covered the entire area. He looked at the chaos as his mouth twitched. Damn, not only the border, they even fired over the border. No wonder they are the Russians. Direct hit, beautiful, say thanks for me to the gunner. Boris held the headphones and moved out of cover. Danger alleviated. Get up, handsome. Natasha dubiously smiled, then dragged Jiang Chen by the collar. Okay, Yuri, take the Belarusian with us. We'll head to B-Point to evacuate. Bang! His voice was interrupted as Boris's cocky expression froze on his face. A daunting blood hole appeared on his chest. Sniper, damn it! Natasha pushed Jiang Chen to the ground. The others got into the same position. It's not me who shot, Aisha's voice emerged. The sniper is directly in front of me and exceeds my range. Can I shoot the female thug on top of you? This is a good opportunity. Jiang Chen shook his head with a forced smile, but his nose and mouth were being firmly held by the softness. Shaking his head was not the most convenient move. This is the second time. He heard a cold voice. Clearly, Natasha was in a terrible mood. The second time you push me over, I only want to breathe. Let's not talk about this. What should we do, Miss Kidnapper? He got away from the softness, neglected the angry face, and said innocently, Strawman, please return, damn it. Strawman died. The Russian man named Yuri cursed angrily. Strawman, one of the snipers killed by Aisha. In that case, two forces are competing. Goddamn, why am I so popular? Jiang Chen cursed in this mind. Yuri, do you see his position? Natasha ignored Jiang Chen as she yelled at the cover behind her. Being suppressed by a sniper was far more frightening than being suppressed by a machine gun. At least you could see the machine gun bullets, but you don't even know where sniper bullets come from. Let me try. Yuri gritted his teeth. He signaled his comrade to keep an eye on Nick, who was still tied down, and then took out the binoculars, carefully peeking out of the cover. As long as they marked the sniper's position, an artier would send him to air. Bang! Red mixed with white, spilled everywhere without warning. Chapter 145. Have you seen Mission Impossible 5? Nick's eyes narrowed, and he used his shoulder to wipe off the blood splashed onto his face. Although his expression remained the same, he was internally shocked. To be able to lock onto a target and fire in 2 seconds, the sniper's shooting could not get any better. Yuri! Before the voice faded, another shot was fired. The bullet accurately penetrated the head that peeked out from the other side of the cover. Morris wanted to use the opportunity garnered by the commander's life to lock onto the position of the sniper. But the opposing sniper's reaction was unfathomable, as they immediately switched target after the shot, firing without a glimpse of delay. Natasha's was furious. Within 1 minute, her team suffered 3 casualties. Damn it, Yuri, Morris down. Captain, we should request assistance. The other Russian agent beside Nick firmly leaned against the cover and yelled in Natasha's direction. We sent out all the help we could. Command Center, target X13Y15, requesting smoke bomb launch. This is Command Center. Permission granted, smoke bomb launched. The explosion rang once again as thick gray smoke covered the area. The smoke bomb with thermal reaction meant that even if the enemy was equipped with heat detection scope, it could block their vision. Natasha let out a breath of air as she carried her rifle and dragged Jiang Chen by the collar, about to get up. But now, sensing the opportunity was here, Jiang Chen's eyes moved and he clamped both of her hands. Before Natasha could react, Jiang Chen grabbed both of her hands. In the not most elegant position, she was pushed to the ground. Seeing the situation, the Russian beside Nick quickly aimed at Jiang Chen. "Break up the hand." The grim words came out, and Aisha simultaneously pressed the trigger. The bullet ripped apart the right wrist of the Russian as the horrifying bone was exposed in the air. Before the man could scream out in pain, Nick, who sensed the opportunity, dashed up and slammed him to the ground. With his knees pressed on the arm, Nick used the rope between his hand against the Russian's neck and choked him unconscious. Seeing as the Russian didn't move anymore, Jiang Chen signaled Nick to treat him and tie him up before he looked at Natasha again. The Ukrainian girl riding him had a face full of humiliation as she desperately tried to fight back. Her face was steamy red, but regardless of how much force she used, both of her hands could not escape from Jiang Chen's iron claw. She couldn't imagine this guy, who identifies as a merchant, could use one hand too tightly clench onto both of her hands. Despite how hard she tried, she could not move the slightest bit. "Stop, don't waste your energy," Jiang Chen said casually as he looked at the balls, distorted against the concrete floor with a grin. He then mocked, mimicking her tone third time. Seeing as struggling was futile, Natasha decided to stop moving. She turned her face as she used the corner of her eye to angrily stare at Jiang Chen, who was sitting on her waist. "Did you lock onto the sniper's position?" With one hand clenching Natasha, Jiang Chen used the other hand to touch his ear. He looked like he was speaking to himself. "Locked on, the target is moving." Although it was outside of her range, that rat's life signal was already marked on the map. "Follow him, try to capture him alive." "Roger," Aisha's responded concisely. Jiang Chen ended their communication and glanced in Nick's direction. The Russian with a broken hand was tied up and thrown against the wall. Nick overlooked him with a rifle in hand. The man seemed to have gone unconscious because of the lost blood, but that was okay, as long as he didn't die. If it was not needed, Jiang Chen didn't want to be an enemy to the intelligence department of the 5 thugs. Then, Jiang Chen looked back at Natasha, looking at her dubiously. "Now it's time for me to interrogate you." Natasha smiled contemptuously. "You won't get a single word out of my mouth." "That's not a guarantee." Jiang Chen shrugged as he suddenly smiled mischievously. "Since my people already took care of the sniper, we have plenty of time. Why don't we do something fun?" "I promise it won't be fun." Natasha sneered, her green eyes filled with defiance. "That depends. Maybe in the end you can't even control yourself." Jiang Chen's laugh was pure evil. Funny, he realized after being injected with the genetic vaccine, not only did his physique improve, the width and hardness did as well. With the help of Fury, even Aisha, who was slightly would go insane. But he obviously was just joking. He was not at the point where he would do it here. "With you." Natasha's contemptuous voice ignited a flame in Jiang Chen's heart. "I can't take this." Jiang Chen was immediately unhappy. "Do you want to test it out?" There, on a block 500 meters away, a slim figure, carrying a sniper rifle, was moving quickly through the street in shambles. This area was the front line between the government force and civil militant. The glass along the street was shattered, and busted tanks and armored vehicles were everywhere on the road. Gunshots could be faintly heard from afar to what seemed like a fairly large-scale attack. She ducked down and maintained her running position. She then looked at her right arm. The dangling right arm illuminated with light. The radio life detection system synced with the gathered data on the EP map. Right now, the red dot on the map already stopped moving. That sniper must have arrived at the backup sniping point. If she just wanted to kill him, one shot would be enough from such a distance. A sniper with exposed coordinates was as good as died. But to capture him, naturally, she had to get close. Aisha was getting closer and closer to the target. Her rapid steps started to turn more cautious. Quickly, her distance with the target was only one street. Aisha leaned against the wall as she examined from across the street. It was an abandoned office building. The revolving glass door was cracked with wrecked armored vehicles slammed into the door. Aisha retrieved the sniper rifle from her back. She looked into the scope and scanned the building. After confirming the exact location of the target, Aisha hoisted the pistol by her waist, slowly took a deep breath, and then dashed into the street. She carefully docked across the shattered door, with light steps, and cautiously sneaked upstairs. Usually, once sniper is in position, their awareness to their surrounding decreased to null. For snipers that worked alone, mines and traps were pretty much a must. She carefully followed the safety tunnel to the 5th floor. At the corner of the hallway, she stopped. She stopped, let out a sigh, grabbed an EMP grenade from her pocket and slid it out after detonation. Static noise. Aisha held the pistol, turned around and continued to the 5th floor door. At the door, a mine sat there, but the infrared emitter on top was destroyed by the EMP. She stepped over the no longer functioning mine with agile steps and sneaked to the end of the tunnel. Vasily quietly laid on the ground with eyes locked on the scope. Based on the image from the drone, the 4 people didn't leave. Instead, under cover of the smoke, they went into a shack not too far away. The plot's progression surprised him. The command center explicitly stated to capture, took down the KGB agent in one move. The intelligence department said he was just an ordinary person. An average person that could take down an agent with one move. Regardless, he was still there. As long as he maintained his position on the sniper, he only needs to wait for reinforcement and take them as hostages. But for some reason, he felt unsettled. Suddenly, someone kicked him in the butt. He immediately flinched. The moment he turned around, he also reached for his pistol, but before he could, a black shadow covered his entire vision. The headphones dropped to the side. Aisha emotionlessly looked at the bloodstain on the gun barrel and then at the Russian with his nose smashed. Dagger 2, report your status. Aisha crushed the headphone as she took out handcuffs and cuffed the unlucky guy. She opened the mic. Target retracted. There. Beautiful, drag him over here. A smile emerged on Jiang Chen's face, but that smile in the eyes of Natasha was eviler than the devil himself. The sniper was captured. Interrogation should get out some useful information from him, but Jiang Chen was still curious as to how he drew the interest of the KGB. He looked at the Natasha, tied up on the ground, as he gave her a friendly smile. But the friendly expression did not receive the same recognition from her. Natasha used the same grim look and stared back at him. Don't look at me like that. Jiang Chen shrugged as he tried to defend his action. I said I am just a businessman, but you stick to me like flies. Did I bother you or trouble you? Fly, what do flies like to stick to? Natasha sneered. Jiang Chen first stopped, then laughed. Are you trying to enrage me? Is there any benefit to you for doing so? Natasha bit her lip, not responding. The blonde hair on her forehead was a bit messy. In her deep eye socket was a pair of piercing eyes. The vibe was certainly there. The look of, regardless of anything you do, I won't say anything. This made Jiang Chen troubled. To be honest, he personally didn't enjoy use force on beauty. He sighed and said, in my opinion, you should just cooperate. Tell me who you represent. Why do you need me? For what? And then I'll let you go. Such simple concepts. Although I am not an agent, I have seen entire Hollywood blockbusters and war dramas. Even if I haven't seen an interrogation before, at least I could try to use a thing or two. If I accidentally don't control my force, then you. Do you think I am scared of death? Still the contemptuous tone. Mission outside of the border without the grant of the United Nations. For the glory of the country, even if she dies, she would not admit her identity. Jiang Chen stopped again, gave it some thought, and nodded while scratching his chin. Not a bad point. He can't kill her. Jiang Chen didn't plan to make enemies with the KGB. But how would he get the information out of her? Suddenly, Jiang Chen clapped his hands as if he thought of something. Then, he smiled at Natasha with a not-so-friendly smile. "What are you smiling at?" Natasha felt uncomfortable. "Nothing, but speaking of which, have you seen Mission Impossible 5? Chapter 146, The Secret. Within a dark room. Natasha's pupils dilated as she sat awkwardly on the chair. Her limbs were tied firmly onto the armrests and chair legs. Jiang Chen glanced at her and sneered a few times. Don't be mistaken. Although he did say he wanted her to try, Jiang Chen didn't actually do anything to her. Instead, he asked Aisha to come and guard the door. He then walked into an inner room and went back to the apocalypse. He sent a message to Zhou Guoping, stationed in the 6th Street, and asked him to find out if there was any truth-telling liquid. To be honest, Jiang Chen wasn't too confident about medicine from sci-fi movies existing in the future. But when he heard his boss question, Zhou Guoping stated that it did exist and promised that he would send it over after he purchased it. Jiang Chen sat in the community center for a bit as he took the truth-telling liquid from the meticulous Zhou Guoping. After sending him back, Jiang Chen returned to the modern world. The trip back and forth took 4 hours. The sky was already darkening. Nick still stood outside, guarding without complaint, while Aisha also stood her ground at the door, coldly exchanging eye contact with Natasha. What happened after was simple. Natasha's contempt was better than Lin Lin's. Her resilience was also hundreds of times stronger, keeping her mouth shut. But Jiang Chen didn't waste time with her. In front of her, he slowly took out a needle from his pocket. "Have you heard about the truth-telling liquid, the one in Mission Impossible 5? Natasha's face immediately changed as she desperately twisted her back to resist. Without any other solutions, Jiang Chen had to forcefully tie her onto the chair to sit her down. Then, he looked at her frightened expression pleasingly. "Scared? What happened to the earlier you?" He personally loved to put things in beauty's bodies. To be fair, the truth-telling liquid was pretty useless in the apocalypse. Based on what Zhou Guoping said, the principle of this was to force the target's brain into hypnosis, while only being able to perform simple information receiving and answering. But in the apocalypse, even the survivors injected with the cheap E-grade genetic vaccine would not be hypnotized by this kind of medicine. But in the modern world, using this thing was just unfair. After being injected, Natasha was much more honest. Jiang Chen would ask a question, and she would reply with an answer drowsily. Then, the sniper also had an injection, and after combining the responses of both people, Jiang Chen finally understood the story from beginning to end. But the truth felt heavy. Willy Society, a mysterious organization established before the Second World War, was created by the German politician scholar Karl Haushofer. Its members included Hermann, Himmler, and even Hitler himself. Based on rumors, a lot of the obscure technology came from there. At the same, the organization committed a lot of sinful activities during the war. After the war, it disappeared into thin air as if it didn't exist at all. But that was not the key point. The key point was that the organization still existed even today, and within Kane, the new President Poroshenko was also a member. NATO allowed for its existence. It was a hefty piece of news, but he tied what he saw in the news before. Azerbaijan soldiers of the Mariupol force had the Nazi symbol painted on their helmets, as well as the Kane soldier with the Nazi symbol attached to their arms, and began to think. The information was from Natasha. KGB spy activity in Kane was mostly spent on the mysterious organization called Willy Society. It differed from what Jiang Chen had suspected. He thought the Russian agents were coming for him because of the artificial intelligence, but it was an obscure reason. The only reason Natasha found him was because of a phone call. Half a month ago, when KGB was tapping Poroshenko's confidant General Markinov, they by chance got an interesting message. A man named Robert called him. 3 keywords: Jiang Chen gold mercenaries. By coincidence, around 1 year ago, when Robert didn't touch the Iran oil and simply played the middleman role diligently, He was in charge of selling firearms to the Kane government on behalf of the White House. At that time, he was successfully put onto the blacklist of KGB, and KGB did initiate a civil militant-led attack targeting him. If it were not for the Slavic man who could fight, he would have been done for. Then, after Robert left Kane, his name naturally came off of the blacklist, but Natasha didn't expect to see that name again. After some investigation, Jiang Chen's resume was put into her hands, but his history was too clean to the point that it was unbelievable. Therefore, the moment Jiang Chen got off the plane, he was monitored. Markinov is a member of the Willy Society. KGB wants to know the intention behind Jiang Chen's contact with him. The original plan was for Natasha to try and hit on Jiang Chen, inject anesthetics when they entered the room, then transport him out of the hotel through special means, and interrogate at the safe house. But what she didn't expect was that Jiang Chen was not as perverted as the information said, as he rejected her proposition. So she had to ask for permission to start Plan B, which was, once Jiang Chen left Vate, intercept him once they reached East. The further they drove east, the more advantageous the situation was for them. But unfortunately, KGB was not the only ones interested in Jiang Chen. Willy Society was also confused by the man from the east attempting to contact Markinov. It was okay when it was Robert since he represented the UA, but they questioned Jiang Chen's identity. Also, he belonged to a mysterious organization. They couldn't find a single piece of information related to the force behind him. They could deduce from current information that Jiang Chen belonged to an organization with unknown motive, unknown location, but strong research and development capabilities and substantial funding. As to Jiang Chen himself, just like KGB, they only managed to find a resume as good as scrap paper. It looked fake no matter how they interpreted it. Although Jiang Chen wanted to state that the piece of paper was real. The intelligence always overthought, so he'll leave them to their imagination. They also started to monitor Jiang Chen when he got off the plane, but during monitoring, they found an interesting person, Natasha, KGB agent. The Willy agent was immediately unsettled when they saw the contact between Jiang Chen and KGB, but they didn't alert them, because it was a great opportunity. Not including Jiang Chen himself, if they operated correctly, they could even take out all the Russian agents behind Natasha. So they also patiently waited for Jiang Chen to arrive at East and waited for the Russians to make the first move. To put it in simple terms, he was targeted by the two troubling groups, Willy Society and KGB. As long as he was in Kane, he would not be able to get rid of these troubles. "Are you okay?" Aisha looked at Jiang Chen caringly. "Yeah, keep an eye on her for me." Jiang Chen rubbed his temple wearily as he headed outside. Outside the shack, Nick was patrolling with his rifle. Seeing Jiang Chen walk towards him, he waved to say hi. "How's the situation?" "Everything is normal. The Russian Special Force seemed to have headed to our previous location. They rescued the pilot." "Not a big deal. Do you have a satellite phone? I need to discuss with that dumps Robert." Their location was far away from the crash. They wouldn't be able to find them here. Nick smiled, took out the satellite phone, and threw it into Jiang Chen's hand. Right now, Robert was in a distant land across the Atlantic Ocean, lying relaxingly in his Los Santos mansion, enjoying the lavish life. Beside him lied a girl lost in life, ready to discuss her Hollywood dream with him the entire night. But in this critical moment, the phone on the nightstand suddenly rang. Although he was unwilling, he saw the caller was Jiang Chen. He immediately picked up. "Hello, did you meet my old friend?" "Meet your mom." Jiang Chen was instantly frustrated when he heard Robert's cheerful voice and cursed, "Who the hell is your old friend? The moment I got off the plane, I got monitored by two agent organizations." Robert held the phone, momentarily lost for words. He asked with confusion in his voice, "What?" Jiang Chen adjusted his emotion as he let out a sigh. Then he slowly said, "KGB, Willy Society." Robert's face immediately changed. He ignored the Hollywood girl beside him, got out of the bed, and walked to the living room covering his phone. "How did you mess with the KGB? And what is Willy Society?" Robert said anxiously. Robert didn't even know. Jiang Chen was surprised. "Have you not heard about them when you were in Kane? It seems to be an organization with roots starting in the Second World War with the Nazis. Damn it. What is this bullshit? Your old friend Markinov appears to be a Willy Society member." Then Jiang Chen stated the information he got with truth-telling liquid again. Hearing Jiang Chen's description, Robert's expression turned serious. "I always thought it was a rumor, but I can't believe they actually exist." "Yes, they do, but what the fuck does it have to do with me? I just want to know, how am I going to leave Kane? If I got back to, I would be captured. The same will happen if I head to the east towards Russia. Do I need to swim across the Black Sea? This is bullshit," Jiang Chen swore. "Wait, let me think." Robert closed his eyes and then suddenly opened them. "Did you kill them?" He referred to the Russian agents. "No, I tied them up." Jiang Chen took a deep breath and said slowly. "Good, there are still ways to resolve this. How about selling the 2 Russian agents to the CIB? I know someone working in Kane." "FCKU," Jiang Chen burst out, "your friend again." Robert was quite helpless too and revealed a bitter face. There is nothing I can do. Who knew Markinov has an identity like this? Damn it, when I sold him firearms before, I didn't care who he was. For real, buddy, sell the people to CIB. They will send helicopters to pick you up and send you to their aircraft carrier. And they should let you off at Greece, and then arrange for your tickets home. "That's fine, I'll think of other ways." Jiang Chen hung up the phone. Nick took the phone from Jiang Chen and asked, "Did Robert think of something?" "He is dumber than before." Jiang Chen cursed and returned to the shack. "You must be kidding me, getting involved with the CIB again. There is not enough trouble already. Willy Society is okay, since they should only be operating in Kane. KGB is fine too, since this is not a Soviet era. But if CIB were interested in you, they would take UA citizens' taxpayer money to chase your butt around the world." He pushed open the door, and Jiang Chen saw Aisha working on the scope of the rifle. Jiang Chen adjusted his emotion as he tried to force a relaxed look. Then he said with a smile, "What are you doing?" Seeing Jiang Chen was back, Aisha smiled gently at him. "Doing maintenance on the gun, exporting video footage." "Video footage?" He hesitated for a moment before his eyes lit up. "I have a solution now." Chapter 147, The Perfect Solution. When Natasha woke up drowsily from passing out, she struggled to open her sore eyes. When she realized her current circumstance, a fierce look was targeted towards Jiang Chen, who was sitting directly across from her. "What did you do to me?" Obviously, she didn't have any memories after being injected with the truth-telling liquid. Her clothes were distorted with hands tied to the armrest and feet locked to the chair legs. A male and a female in a room together. There was a lot of room for the imagination. "Nothing," Jiang Chen shrugged with a smile on his face. "I am an innocent person." "PSH." Natasha cursed in her mind as she looked at Jiang Chen without saying a word. "KGB." Jiang Chen spoke, but Natasha's expression did not change at all. As long as she doesn't admit it, what could he do to her? Seeing Natasha's look of defiance, Jiang Chen smiled, put a smartphone on the table and pressed play. "I am from the KGB. The purpose of your trip in Kane: to conduct intelligence, gather and provide intelligence for civil militants. Questions and answers." The male's voice was obviously Jiang Chen's, the female was Natasha's. Natasha's face turned pale as she violently twisted her body to free herself and grab the phone. Seeing the girl's action, Jiang Chen only shrugged and pressed the screen a few more times. "Before you calm down, I'll just show you something even more interesting." He ignored Natasha's deathly stare as Jiang Chen picked the phone up and played the video. The video's quality was high. The perspective was from a scope. In the video, there was an M171 Russian helicopter. Then the screen shook. Aisha fired. At the same time, an RPG hit the helicopter. The helicopter went out of balance and crashed. Then, what looked like Kane's special forces began to fire at the group. Of course, it was a joke that Kane has a special force. Right after, Boris in the front called for artillery support, and a few shells covered the entire area, sending the group of soldiers flying. Then it was Boris being shot in the chest. Then the Yuri guy being shot in the head, followed by Morris. Then it was Aisha that broke another Russian agent's hand, but that part was cut. Natasha's expression was pale as she stopped struggling. I trust that you know what would happen if this video appeared on YouTube or other sites. Unauthorized military action in foreign countries. Artillery stationed in the border launching strikes against foreign targets. The video's resolution is much better than the UAE's satellite. I remember that the White House didn't even capture images of you guys firing. Would this in my hand be considered big news? Just so you know, I also intercepted the communication requesting for artillery. Jiang Chen smiled delightfully. There was not a single trace of redness on Natasha's face. She knew exactly what kind of severe consequence would result if the video was uploaded. Give me the video. No, Jiang Chen smiled. You'll be hunted by KGB agents, Natasha threatened. If something happens to me, the video will automatically be sent out. You will get nothing out of it. Jiang Chen's fingers crossed as he said this, not caring. Natasha was silent. Then she changed into a flirtatious expression. If you are willing to give it to me, I will give you some unexpected services. Aisha standing by the door glanced at her. The emotionless face looked rather daunting. Are you not going to ask your little soldier to leave? I will make you really comfortable. Natasha was a different person. The eyes in her deep eye sockets were charming. To be honest, Jiang Chen was feeling a little hard. I'll pass. Who knows how many people have you done? I would rather pay. Jiang Chen closed his eyes to avoid showing any fluctuations in his emotions, hiding his awkwardness. He then continued, also, she is not a soldier, she is my wife. Hearing that, Aisha's eyes opened wide. Mist flickered in her eyes. Natasha glanced at the touched girl and continued to look at Jiang Chen with a smile. That might not be true, I am still pure. Who would believe it? Stop with this nonsense, let's make a deal, Jiang Chen, annoyed, spoke. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to resist the temptation after being firm on his stance for so long. Deal? You think you are worthy enough to make a deal with the country? Natasha's eyes cooled down as she narrowed them. Country? Nah, I'm only making a deal with your intelligence minister. Jiang Chen ignored Natasha's contemptuous expression and said straightforwardly. If the video appears on the internet, the political career of your minister is over. Someone must take the blame for this. Then, as long as we pretend it doesn't exist, Jiang Chen shrugged and looked at Natasha. I'll let you and the sucker with the broken hand go. We both kidnapped each other so we can say we are even. If you dare to retake action on me, I'll release the video. If you want the video not to exist, then just don't bother. Do you think we'll leave a piece of evidence like this in someone else's hands? Natasha burst out laughing. Think about it. Jiang Chen also laughed. You guys know that I have a mysterious organization behind me. I already said I am willing to resolve this peacefully. Why are you giving me trouble? You want to cause a whole bunch of trouble and lose your job, or remain silent and pretend I don't exist. The choice is in your hands. I can give you back your communication device now. Why don't you have a chat with your superior? Natasha's eyes slightly shook, finally letting out a sigh. Okay. What happened next was what Jiang Chen had expected. The KGB head named Bart accepted this deal without hesitation. First, the two parties' conflict was resolved. KGB will no longer take action, and he will leave Kane in 3 days, keeping the video content a secret. If the video is leaked, KGB will be sent out agents to assassinate him. As to KGB's threat, Jiang Chen only shrugged and didn't overthink it. Also, Jiang Chen provided a USB to Natasha with the interrogation results of the sniper. Natasha would take his achievement back to her country, receive a promotion, and then sit within the office. Since her identity was already exposed, it would no longer be suitable for foreign missions. Jiang Chen's USB gave Bart the reason to promote her and also gave her a price to shut her mouth. The mission will be recorded as Natasha and her team engaged in heavy combat with Willy Society's controlled force, with the team suffering heavy casualties but obtained critical intelligence. As to Jiang Chen's existence, it will be hidden. Although Bart, the old cunning fox, suggested to Jiang Chen to transfer the sniper to the Russian side, Jiang Chen refused. He had other uses for this sniper. Jiang Chen didn't insist since the interrogation report was already comprehensive with everything they needed. But in the voice recording, the sniper often answered right away, without hesitation, which was quite obscure. The frail voice of the guy probably meant that he suffered some gruesome torture. When the communication ended, Jiang Chen untied Natasha. She moved her sore body as she gave Jiang Chen an ambiguous look. "You are brilliant. From what I know, you are the first foreigner to have come to an agreement with Bart." Jiang Chen shrugged. "It did match the interest of both parties. This ending is not bad for you or me, right?" To be honest, where he got the idea was from the dumbass Robert. Except compared to him, Jiang Chen was attempting something bigger. "Fair, although you are playing with fire. Where is Jaeger?" Natasha spoke as she extended her hand. "The guy with a broken hand, in the other room." Jiang Chen passed the USB to her. Before she left, Natasha still looked cautiously at the smartphone on the table. Inside contained videos that could affect Russia's image. It could even be used as an excuse to start a new wave of economic sanctions, as long as she destroyed it. But she also noticed that the quiet girl had her eyes locked onto her. She had the feeling that if she dared to make a move, the girl would instantly pull the trigger. "Not leaving, going to miss me," Jiang Chen smirked. Natasha smiled charmingly. "Are you really not going to reconsider my proposal? To be honest, I figured that you don't look as weak as I thought. It doesn't seem to be too bad to use you as my first." Aisha didn't say anything but maintained the same emotionless expression, though her vibe was becoming more and more dangerous. "The negotiation is already over. If it is a personal invitation, maybe I'll say yes at a different time." Jiang Chen rejected smoothly. Natasha giggled and didn't respond. She then headed straight to the door. "When you have the chance to come to Moscow, don't forget to tell me. You suffered through a lot. I'll have to buy you a drink." "Of course," Jiang Chen laughed as he said to her shadow lightheartedly. Well, Natasha left with Jaeger. Then, Jiang Chen's group took the unconscious sniper to a different location. Under the disguise of the darkness, they traversed through the battlefield to an isolated community. After going inside an abandoned apartment building, making sure they were not being followed, Jiang Chen woke the tied-up sniper. "Vasily." Vasily didn't say anything. He quietly looked at Jiang Chen. He didn't know under the influence of the truth-telling liquid, he has already exposed all of his secrets. "I heard that snipers usually have great patience, right?" Jiang Chen said lightheartedly. "Then you should know, interrogation means nothing to me." The Slavic-looking man stared at Jiang Chen, answering coldly. Nick stood on the side and translated it into English. Then he looked at Jiang Chen. Seeing as Vasily didn't say anything, Jiang Chen continued, "I don't plan on interrogating you. I only want to ask you for some contact information. How should I say this? I want to do a deal with the organization behind you." Chapter 148, Mercenary. Honestly speaking, Jiang Chen did not care about the goddamn place known as Kane. He only wanted to buy some experienced soldiers and train a mercenary force loyal to him to complete his island capture plan. But at the moment, he was tricked by the dumbass Robert's information. Markinov's hidden identity made the situation much more complicated. Because of the KGB agents, as well as the Willy Society agents going head-to-head, he was forced into this hidden conflict. The fortunate part was, all these problems were resolved. Whatever conspiracy the Willy Society had, KGB can worry about it. He walked with Markinov along the 92nd Mechanized Infantry Base as the two chatted together. Nick followed behind them because Markinov's English was not too bad, so he didn't even need to translate. He just continued to walk along in his usual silence. As to Aisha, Jiang Chen stationed her in the distance, just in case. Although they were not in the most dangerous area, it was considered the front line. The conditions here were quite harsh. The soldiers would usually sleep by the dug trench. The wooden boxes used to store ammo were used as tables. They sat around eating cold canned food, chewing black bread. Seeing the soldiers' living condition, it was not even comparable to the survivors in the fishbone base. Jiang Chen had the illusion that he was too generous. There's plenty of great guys here at the 92nd Mechanized Infantry. If you see anyone you like, let me know. I'll chat with them. Of course, as long as he is not too dumb, he won't reject the offer. Markinov laughed. Seeing the general finally coming to the front line to check them, a lot of the listless soldiers regained their focus and saluted when he walked by. Seeing the soldiers, Jiang Chen was skeptical if they could actually defend against the civil forces' attack, but his face remained expressionless. "Oh, if I take the aces from your force, are you not going to get a heartache?" Jiang Chen half-jokingly said. The man has a pointed nose and sharp sight, with a faint scar the side of his face. He looked like he had a fit physique. At a glance, Jiang Chen couldn't relate him to a corrupt official that sold national assets. He was also the confidant of the new president. "What's there to have a heartache about?" Markinov shrugged and laughed. "What if you give me 100 aces? Would they beat the volunteers from Russia? The outcome of the war never swayed towards us from the beginning. Let's not talk about that. Let's speak of something more practical. My own salary has been held back for a few months already. If I don't sell equipment, how would I pay the people under me?" He didn't say anything. The gold worth 1 million USD was enough for him to spend the rest of his life comfortably in any country. So what if he is a confidant of Poroshenko? He had too many confidants. This guy didn't care about being alive or dead. Once he has the money, he doesn't care about what this God-forbidden place would turn into. Jiang Chen didn't respond. Before he already came to an agreement with Willy Society. He would leave Kane within 3 days. The purpose of the trip was to hire some mercenaries as bodyguards. The deal was personal. Although he did have an undisclosed organization behind him, they had no intention of stepping into Kane's mess. The sniper he captured would be returned after he safely leaves the country. If something unexpected happened to him in the next 3 days, the sniper's location would automatically be sent to Russia. The hostage would be transferred to the Russian side. Vasily didn't know he was injected with truth-telling liquid. Willy Society, therefore, wouldn't know part of their information was already leaked to the Russian side. Therefore, there would still be value in the sniper. Hence, to prevent anything unexpected from happening to Jiang Chen in the next 3 days, Willy Society even sent a few agents to protect him, in case the KGB secretly want to cause interference. But clearly, they overcomplicated the situation as Jiang Chen already reached an agreement with KGB. Even if there were still agents following him from afar, they would not make a move. "Other than soldiers, do you need a tank? At 64, I'll sell it to you for 1 million USD. "Tank, where would I even put that?" Jiang Chen jokingly cursed. "You must be joking. You think I don't know that that's the historic remains from the Soviet? 400 T-64s lie in the tank graveyard at Kharkov with who knows how thick of dust covering them. It would be a miracle to find one that is still moving. Those things were scraps that even the steel factory wouldn't want." He followed the trench to the empty ground. Markinov and a second-in-command-looking person exchanged a few words in whispers. Then, he grabbed 2 chairs and sat with Jiang Chen, smiling. The 92nd Mechanized Infantry soldiers were interviewed in groups, with Nick the veteran making the call. Jiang Chen only sat on the side, doing some simple verification. To prevent agents from other organizations, he would only need to use some truth-telling liquid to ask them a few questions later. After around 2 hours, they finally finished the troublesome process. Kane had no special forces, but there were still a few experienced soldiers with skills comparable to special forces mixed in. Mostly comprised of Constanese, they were natural warriors with superior individual combat ability. Their equipment was taken off, and Jiang Chen took the group of soldiers already removed from the force to an abandoned warehouse 2 kilometers away. Jiang Chen signaled Nick to translate. I know you must have a lot of questions in mind, such as being forced to join the army and then somehow removed from the force. Jiang Chen stood on top of a broken shipping container and yelled at the lost soldiers. You already shed enough blood for your home country. Regardless if it is still worthy of your allegiance, you all did an excellent job. Now, we should talk about something practical. A 10-year work contract and a salary of 100,000 USD a year. Fight for me, not the Poroshenko who can't even pay you, Jiang Chen said firmly as he scanned the eyes, filled with differing thoughts. Like a rock thrown into the middle of a tranquil lake, the soldiers all began to discuss. Jiang Chen patiently waited for them to come up with a result. No matter who, the decision that would change their lives would make people unsettled and lost. How do we know you are telling the truth? People in Vate tricked us to the front line, and we had a pity 1,500 hryvnia last month. We didn't even get paid anything this month. So what's your plan? Jiang Chen spoke calmly. Leave here to Poland since my name is already removed. Thank God, the soldier said without hesitation. If you see these things, do you still have the same plan? Jiang Chen shrugged and signaled Nick to take out the suitcase. The suitcase opened, filled with stacks of USD bills. Instantly, everyone held their breath. This is private work. You fight for me and I'll pay your salary, Poland. You become a refugee without dignity in another country. Utilize your only strength with me. Work for 10 years, take your saving, and enjoy the rest of your life in any country. The opportunity is right in front you and the door is behind you. To stay or to leave, you guys can decide. After saying this, Jiang Chen patiently looked at them and stopped saying anything. 10 years, 1 million. Not even 1 million. They haven't even seen 10,000 francs stacked together. The soldiers erupted, but no one wanted to leave. They were still skeptical of Jiang Chen's generous offer. Can I ask a question? Finally, a middle-aged man with a rigid face stepped out and tried to ask a question. Of course, Jiang Chen examined the person and said nonchalantly. My name is Ivan. Ivan courteously stated his name, then said with a firm tone, before accepting your offer, can we know where we will be serving? Africa, training mercenaries for me, Jiang Chen answered straightforwardly. When they heard that they were not being dragged to an unstable area as cannon fodder, they looked more relieved. Even with a lot of money, they had to be alive to spend it. Another question, how are you planning to pay our salary? A lot of us have family here. Jiang Chen interrupted him as he waved his hand in dominating fashion. Cash, transfer, whatever you want. Paid every half a year. I only have one requirement. Your contribution must be worthy of your salary. The conditions I gave must be met. He paused. Jiang Chen scanned these people, and then continued. I know a lot of you have a family. You can choose to move them to the family area at the base, or you can opt to leave them here, or whatever. I'll prepay 10,000 in salary. I want all of you to show up at Boris Bor International Airport 3 days later. If someone runs away with this 10,000 USD, said in a cheerful voice, then wouldn't that be embarrassing for me? The remaining 900,000 USD will be the bounty for your head. When Nick explained Jiang Chen's last words, everyone gasped. Not because of the threat, but rather the Eastern boss was willing first to pay them 10,000 for their families. He could not be more compassionate. With such a genuine offer, who would leave? If someone did, they definitely had their head kicked before. Seeing no one posed any objections, Jiang Chen indicated to Nick to take out the contract. Once they signed, they could receive 10,000 USD in cash as money for family accommodation. After everything was taken care of, Jiang Chen immediately dismissed them. You are quite generous. Nick smiled as he gave the suitcase with 900,000 USD back to Jiang Chen. Haha, are you interested in working for me? I'll give you 1 million in salary, Jiang Chen laughed. Nick shook his head. Jiang Chen expected his response. That was a joke. Although Robert's head is pretty abnormal, he has his ways of looking after people. Jiang Chen passed him a cigarette and jokingly cursed. Nick grabbed the cigarette as he lit it up. "Are you not smoking?" He raised his eyebrows and blew a ring. "Here and there, but rarely now." Jiang Chen shook his head, touched his ear, and alerted Aisha, "Mission complete, come back." "Okay." After being injected with the genetic vaccine, he was no longer addicted to smoking. The powerful metabolic process meant that the toxins built up in his body would be eliminated through his digestive system. Precisely speaking, even if he constantly smoked, it would not affect his health. He could smoke freely now, but there was no reason anymore, so naturally he stopped. Before it was a way to alleviate stress, but now, life seemed to be good. "Just a bit busy." "What's next? What are you planning to do for the next 3 days?" Nick asked casually. He laughed as Jiang Chen took out a stash of bills and stuffed them into his hands. "This is your bonus. Finally came out of the country, how could I not enjoy myself?" Nick cracked a smile as he didn't reject the money. Then he looked at the slim figure walking through the door. Black cape while holding a sniper rifle. It looked comical against her size. "Spend time with your girl," Nick mocked him. IHaveAMansion. A rare softness appeared on Jiang Chen's face as he looked at Aisha in the distance. Time to make it up to her. Chapter 149. Vacation in Vate. Bright sun, blue sky. This is Vate, not East, hundreds of kilometers away. Chaos has yet to taint the clear sky. With industrial regression, it created a country with air quality far superior to Hua, whether that was considered lucky or not. Crowds passed through the Vate Independence Square, but it was not noisy. Last year, there were a few protests at the beautiful square, and quite a few people died. Maybe that had enough of an impact that individuals who were walking around the square were silent as their condolences, with only the occasional shouting here and there, slowly driving away the haze that was left behind. There were a lot of beauties on the street. It was the first time Jiang Chen experienced the words beauty infested. Because of the unique geographical location, excluding southwest of Crimea, which was along the Black Sea bank that possessed subtropical climate, most of the area had a mild continental climate. The winter was long, and summer was short. Along with lower than average daylight exposure, the people here naturally had paler skin. With the fact that it was located at the border of Europe and Asia, the multi-ethnicity allowed them to have quite a significant advantage in the gene pool. Of course, Jiang Chen's eyes didn't stay on the gorgeous-looking Kane girls, because he was in the middle of a date. Independence Square, below the central memoriam post, a girl with a slightly stiff expression looked at the camera. Relax, smile. "Hey, don't be so shy." As Jiang Chen said that, his eyebrows twitched unnaturally. He felt like a weird uncle trying to lure a small lowly. "This dress is so light, it feels weird." Aisha unnaturally pulled at her skirt, her pale face covered by a red glare. She vision escaped from the lens as she coyly looked at her feet. No, it's cute, relax. Look at the camera." Jiang Chen used all his words to convince Aisha to not be so shy as he finally caught a glimpse of a beautiful scene. Just as Aisha shyly looked up, he pressed the shutter. Snap! Phew, finally done. Jiang Chen wiped the sweat off of his forehead as he let out a relieved sigh. Seeing that they finished taking photos, Aisha immediately ran to Jiang Chen's side. Although she still felt embarrassed by posing in front of a camera, by her eagerness, she naturally looked interested in how the photo turned out. Seeing Aisha's look of expectation, Jiang Chen smiled. "Don't worry, it's beautiful." He called out the picture he just took. She stared at herself in the photo as her eyes began to light up. This really is me." Her voice was filled with disbelief as her finger lightly touched the screen. The slim and graceful figure, the delicate and pale face, and the softly curled brown hair didn't lack liveliness. The slight, shy expression along with the gem-like eyes was a compromise of both innocence and mystery. The black dress hanged to the knee with a black bow tie placed at the waist, and a pair of thin striped sandals to match. The elegant black rose blossomed a mysterious but adorable vibe. The background wasn't relevant anymore. Of course, it's my Aisha. Jiang Chen put the camera down as he rubbed her long hair with a smile. Although still slightly embarrassed, Aisha buried her head down. She was still not used to displaying affection in public, but if it were in their home, she wouldn't be embarrassed even in a bikini. But suddenly, a piercing grim look flashed across her eyes. "Something is following us." Aisha lowered her voice as she walked towards the crowd. "Don't overreact. Of course I know." Jiang Chen tugged on Aisha's hand and stopped her from going to the crowd. She tilted her head as she was confused by Jiang Chen's reaction. Aren't we on a date?" When she heard the word date, Aisha suddenly noticed her hand was being held, and the pale face suddenly turned to a shade of dark red as if blood was about to drip out any second. "Do we really need to care about them?" Her finger twisted around the tip of her dress as she quickly whispered. "No." Jiang Chen smiled brightly as he openly turned around and scanned the crowd. "Just let these dumpses work over time. We'll enjoy our vacation." Without the need to think, at least 2 parties were following him. But so what? He only wanted to take Aisha around for the next 2 days, temporarily forgetting the bothersome troubles and enjoy his vacation. A reward for himself and compensation to Aisha. Watching the side of Aisha's face, Jiang Chen always felt guilty. In her best years, she was supposed to enjoy her youth, but she had to carry a weapon for him. Although from a different but equivalent perspective, he saved her. Therefore, he shouldn't feel guilty about her doing this. But he always thought that if he did think that way, that was not manlike. Sensing Jiang Chen's gaze, Aisha turned around, innocently but gently smiled. "Where are we going to go next?" Holding his hand, Aisha gently shook it. She started to enjoy this feeling, walking with the love of her life and the happiness of the warmth surrounding her hand. "I'll take you to buy some clothes." Jiang Chen gently squeezed her hand and smiled. "Clothes, but I already have plenty," Aisha whispered. In her eyes, it was enough to have a few to change into. The key to attracting her husband was her figure. Although the idea would make him feel excited, something seemed to be wrong. "It's okay, we are rich." He scanned the crowded street as he laughed. To be frank, it was Jiang Chen's first time shopping with a girl. When he was at university, he didn't have the finances. After graduation, he worked at a clothing store. Ignoring all the subjective reasons, the most important one was that he didn't have a girlfriend. In his imagination, taking a cute girl and seeing her change into all kinds of pretty clothes must be the happiest thing in life. Therefore, when he held Aisha's hand, the first thing he thought of was to take her shopping. He quickly realized his mistake. In the beginning, Aisha was still shy and was dazzled by so many selections, not knowing where to start. But when the energetic saleswoman noticed the hesitating Aisha, her eyes lit up and she walked over. Jiang Chen was too familiar with that look because he worked at a clothing store before. He personally witnessed how his colleagues convince, with flattering words, a girl who initially wanted to save money for her boyfriend, buy a set of clothes worth over 10,000. But he didn't really care, just like what he said before. "He's rich, who cares?" The cane saleswoman spoke excellent English. Her energetic work attitude also garnered the trust of Aisha, who was usually afraid of strangers. Therefore, Jiang Chen only saw Aisha move between clothing racks and change room. The clothes she wore were constantly changing. Gothic skirt, refreshing long dress, sassy leather jacket. At the start, Jiang Chen's eyes had a treat. Aisha fitted all styles of clothing, which Jiang Chen signaled to buy without blinking an eye. Aisha was first reserved, but when she found out in surprise that every time she changed, Jiang Chen's eyes would light up, she was more and more interested. In the end, she couldn't even stop. The clothes on the counter started to pile up. The saleswoman was so happy she couldn't even close her mouth. It was the first time seeing such an affluent customer. But this troubled Jiang Chen. Although Aisha did look good in all different styles of clothing, they almost stayed at this store for 2 hours. On this street, there were still hundreds more. But since he already agreed, he must follow through even with tears in his eyes. She finally finished trying on the last piece. Aisha wore a white floral dress coming out of the fitting room. She looked shyly at Jiang Chen, ran a few quick steps, buried her head, and tipped her toes to peek between Jiang Chen's lips. "Thank you, I feel really happy." The usually cold face was filled with emotion. In that instant, all of Jiang Chen's weariness faded. "Worth it." Looking at the saleswoman's almost climaxing expression, Jiang Chen swiped his card. The owner of the clothing store personally sent him out the door, providing a 30% discount gold card in the act of appreciation, and then watched Jiang Chen carry a giant bag, walking away holding Aisha's hand. Around 100 pieces of clothes because almost everything looked good on her. Jiang Chen practically raided everything that was her size from the store. Money was not the problem, only a few thousand USD, but how would they vacation with so much clothing? Jiang Chen let out a sigh as he stopped at an ice cream shop. He ordered a vanilla ice cream for Aisha and told her to wait a bit before carrying the giant bag into the crowd. The people he passed by all turned around and gave him an odd look. Jiang Chen ignored everyone, walking straight into a pipe shop. Then he stopped in front of middle-aged men with his hands in his pocket, examining the pipe in the window. "Following people is an art. Do you guys lack funding this much? At least practice a little more," Jiang Chen sighed. The man's face turned red, and he tried to argue, but Jiang Chen continued before he could open his mouth. "That's enough. The secret police of Kane. You don't look like you are from Willy society. KGB is much more professional than you. At least I didn't find their location." Jiang Chen threw the bag onto the ground and grabbed the camera around his neck. "Sir, did you mistake? Do you see, you are in these photos." Jiang Chen poked at the screen and looked at him mockingly. Seeing that he was exposed, the man had a bitter smile on his face. "Why did you point it out? You'll make me lose my job." "Lose your job? Poroshenko could still afford to pay people's salaries." Jiang Chen laughed about his boss in front of him and pointed at the bag on the ground. "Send this to the Premier Hotel reception. You'll receive 1,000 USD in compensation." By the dumbfounded look of the person, Jiang Chen walked up and patted him on the shoulder with some force. He smiled. "Think for yourself more. The individuals in the front line are looking for ways out. It's not bad taking some side jobs to feed yourself." After finishing, Jiang Chen waved his head and left a still dumbfounded rookie agent. Chapter 150, for the same reason. When Jiang Chen stepped into the ice cream parlor again, he saw an entertaining scene that his face could not help but reveal a thoughtful expression. Aisha in a black dress was sitting at the table. Her original impassive face was now layered with frost. Across from her, an East Slavic young man was talking to her rather enthusiastically. "Hey, gorgeous, may I know your name?" The young man with aquiline nose gazed at Aisha's eyes in what he obviously deemed as romantic. "Ignored." I seem to have seen you somewhere before." No response. Oleg stared at Aisha in embarrassment. From a gentleman's perspective, if the other party had clearly expressed no interest, then pestering would only be regarded as cumbersome. But how could he endure it? Towards someone who was remarkably handsome, romantic, and suave like him, would there be someone who would thoroughly ignore him? He took a deep breath and decided to deliver his ultimate cool move. In one grand romantic gesture, he stood up, genuflected, and stared into Aisha's eyes affectionately. "From the first time I saw you, I couldn't help but fell irrevocably in love with you, my goddess." Most customers in the ice cream shop began to look in their direction. Some young girls covered their mouth in surprise, and some even started to whistle. Proposals like of marriage would always be popular, no matter which country you were. Oleg was indeed attractive and, combined with his fit physique, looked every bit of a dashing man from Kane. However, Aisha had merely cast a glance at the clock on the wall indifferently. She had always been indifferent towards strangers, especially men. If it wasn't for Jiang Chen opposition, she would have worn the black cape she usually wore when sniping on their date. Oleg's passionate expression was frozen on his face as he was left to stew in awkwardness. If he left, it would look like he was acting in a one-man show. On the other hand, Aisha was clearly broadcasting an "I'm too lazy to bother with you" expression. Smiling slightly, Jiang Chen walked forward. "I'm sorry to have kept you waiting for so long." Aisha's eyes lit up instantly when she spotted him. She quickly got up and walked to his side and hugged his arm as though no one was around. "He was pestering me, but I didn't pay him," Aisha explained in a faint voice as she was worried that Jiang Chen might misinterpret the situation. "I know," Jiang Chen interrupted her explanation with a smile and rubbed her hair dotingly. "I trust you." Aisha turned slightly red and lowered her head, fingers unconsciously toying with Jiang Chen's cuffs. Oleg was still frozen in the same awkward position. His mouth was twitching uncontrollably. The crowd's gaze gradually turned from encouraging to that of mockery and sympathy. Regardless of how thick his skin was for flirting with so many girls, his face still betrayed an embarrassed expression. Disconcerted, he got up from the ground, fixed his collar and walked in front of Jiang Chen. "Yellow skin, my goddess, how could you like someone?" After seeing Jiang Chen's face, his contemptuous expression immediately cooled down. "Why don't you keep up your gentlemanly pretense until the end? You look like a kid whose candy got stolen," Jiang Chen sneered. "I dare you to say that again." Oleg extended his hand with a vicious smile as though Jiang Chen's provocation gave him a reason to start a fight. In his eyes, this yellow monkey would not be able to put up a fight. Aisha's eyes flashed a hint of iciness, and just as she was about to make a move, Jiang Chen gently squeezed her hand, signaling that there was no need for her to lend a hand. There was no way that he would let a girl protect him during a date. On the other hand, he was also too lazy to use force. His eyes then scanned his surroundings. I have enough reason to conclude that this dumbass is sent by Willy Society to give me trouble," he muttered under his breath. Oleg hadn't even touched Jiang Chen yet when a middle-aged man sitting on next table vaulted and pushed him against the table in one incredibly swift motion. Who the fuck are you?" Oleg, not understanding the situation, struggled to fight back, but he was bound tightly by a middle-aged man behind him. "I'm the police, don't you fucking move." The middle-aged man fumbled with the handcuffs and cuffed his hands. "Oleg, right. You are under arrest on account of being a threat to national safety. I hope you can cooperate with our investigation." "What?" Oleg shouted incredulously. "I was just trying to pick up a girl. Everyone here can testify." Another middle-aged man drinking coffee on the other side let out a sigh and walked in front of Jiang Chen. "We apologize for giving you a fright. Do you need me to help you with contacting the embassy and arrange for your immediate return?" The middle-aged man in a gray vest looked at Jiang Chen and seemed anxious to depart. "Thank you very much, but that won't be necessary. I still have 2 days left in my vacation. This small mishap would not affect our friendship, wouldn't it?" Jiang Chen extended his right hand with a smile. The middle-aged man watched him for half a day before grasping his right hand silently. "Since you guys had already followed for so long, wouldn't be ashamed to not to use this free bodyguard. I hope you have a great vacation. You know, there are still a lot of people working overtime." The middle-aged man was staring directly at Jiang Chen. "Of course, I hope you have a pleasant overtime." Jiang Chen's smile was especially radiant. After leaving the ice cream parlor, Jiang Chen didn't take Aisha to the clothing stores and instead brought her to the movie theater. Although his mansion had a home theater comparable to a movie house, watching here amplified the experience, especially when on a date. The screen was showing Mission Impossible 5. Although Jiang Chen had already seen it once when he asked what movie Aisha was interested in, she left out all the romance movies and only showed interest in action films. Anyway, his real purpose was to make it up to her, so he gladly agreed with her choice. Moreover, it would be a total loss if one actually paid any attention to the movie while in the company of a girl. Holding Aisha's little hand, feeling her occasional bout of tenseness and the softness of her hand when she relaxed, he felt his mind was on cloud 9. The movie playing on the screen had no hope of entering his mind. "I can hold this hand forever." After leaving the movie theater, Jiang Chen stretched himself. Seeing Aisha's furrowed brows, he gently smiled and asked, "What's the matter?" Aisha stroked her chin and nodded thoughtfully. "I'm just thinking, why do the bullets never hit anyone? Clearly, the villain boss has so many underlings, so why does he need to personally fight in the end? His marksmanship was not even that good." Jiang Chen was speechless. It appeared that this girl did pay attention to the movie the entire time. If they got hit with one shot, it wouldn't be called an action movie anymore. If the antagonist boss doesn't die in the end, it would then become a series. Overall, it's nice, isn't it? Hearing this, Aisha was confused at first, then nodded her head, feeling slightly embarrassed. IHaveAMansion. In the evening, they took a stroll along Dnieper River, feeling the gentle breeze blowing on their face. Jiang Chen took a peek at Aisha, who was holding on his arm. The gorgeous face under the lantern light looked serene, her brown hair fluttered in the breeze, and a smile lingered on her lips. It was such a guileless smile, and it was Jiang Chen's first time seeing it on her face. "Did you have fun today?" he asked, smiling faintly. Hearing this, Aisha's pale face turned slightly pink. Slightly adjusting her position, Aisha stuffed her hand into his. She whispered, but seemed to feel it was not conveying enough of her feelings, so she added, "Very, very happy." "That's good." Jiang Chen smiled, then turned to look at the river. The reflection of the moonlight decorated the Dnieper River's surface and suffused it with light. Aisha gazed at Jiang Chen's side contour. The eyes that were not good at expressing emotions flashed vulnerability and bewilderment. "Why?" Aisha murmured to herself like someone caught in a dream. "Why?" Jiang Chen looked at her somewhat puzzled. "I am only someone you picked up from the desert, obviously. I'm already very happy." Recalling the image of her parents in the pool of blood, the drowsiness while inside the truck and being transported to the refugee camp, recalling her past self who had pretty much given up on life, Aisha suddenly felt herself tearing up. Just being able to live in a stable country was already a happiness in itself. "What's wrong?" Jiang Chen smiled gently and squeezed her soft, little hands a little harder. "But that's why I owe you even more," she murmured. She put her sandals on the gravel road and looked at her own reflection on the river. "Did you follow me just because you wanted to pay me back?" Jiang Chen asked with a smile. A flash of confusion appeared in her eyes, but shortly after she shook her head vigorously. "No." "Then why is it?" After a moment of silence, Aisha's cheek was gradually suffused with heat. The delicate, red lips were conflicted for a good while before finally saying the words that had been brewing for a long time but never got the courage to express. "Because I like you." She paused and stared into his eyes. The look of vulnerability gradually disappeared from her eyes. Hearing this, a warm smile emerged on Jiang Chen's face. An answer he naturally expected, but no matter how many times she said it, it would never fail to make his heart race. "At first I felt I owe you a lot, and that's why I asked for this date," Jiang Chen murmured as he held Aisha's hand. "Oh?" Aisha asked confusedly. She couldn't understand Jiang Chen's choice of words. It was obviously her who owed him a lot. "That's right. In my opinion, you're at your most exciting age, but I have kept you in the mansion and then had been busy with my own affairs, and now that I need you, I immediately gave you a gun. I don't mind being used by you." Aisha tenderly squeezed Jiang Chen's hand. "People are more or less hypocritical, but that's not what I am talking about." Jiang Chen smiled and responded to her affection. He paused before continuing again. "Just now, I suddenly realized that perhaps the real reason was not due to the feeling of I owe you. Rather, it is the same reason as yours. Because you like me. So I also like you too." The two fell into tacit understanding. In the tranquil and romantic Dnieper River, two figures were locked in an embrace, their lips interlocking with one another. Chapter 151, The End of the Journey. The next morning, Jiang Chen sat up on the bed while rubbing his still sleepy eyes. A faint smile appeared on his face while looking at Aisha, who was still curled up in blankets, sleeping like an adorable cat. Needless to say, There were no words for what happened last night. Maybe it was just his imagination. However, it seemed that from that night on, Aisha had started becoming clingier, although she remained expressionless in public when it was just the two of them. There's no need to say the rest. Yesterday, he took Aisha around all the major tourist attractions, along with hundreds of photos carrying their beautiful memories. It could be considered as the perfect culmination of their cane trip. He leaned against the headboard, brooding for a short while, and then taking care not to disturb the still sleeping Aisha, he sneaked out of bed. He went to the bathroom, took a shower, and then took out his phone to call Robert. Buddy, I heard you've solved your problem. Sorry, As soon as the phone connected, Robert's apologetic voice immediately came through. Okay, I didn't come here to listen to you apologize. Jiang Chen yawned and wandered to the balcony of the room. Niger, last stop, how are things over there? Don't worry, everything will be smooth sailing from here on. I already personally made the trip to ensure everything is ready. Robert touched his nose with embarrassment and his laugh echoed through the phone. You personally made the trip. When did you become so diligent? Jiang Chen asked, looking baffled. Your old friend is not monitoring you. Jiang Chen smiled and leaned leisurely against the carved metal fence. Has the infrastructure construction been completed yet? I've already solved the training problem. Of course, I know a Portuguese builder who's an expert in this area. He previously assisted the French army to build a military outpost in Mali. In short, this guy was good at building military infrastructures. Asking price is not. I went and inspected it yesterday. It's already finished and the quality was also excellent. Not bad. Jiang Chen nodded with satisfaction and changed the topic. What about the refugees? Done. Great, wait for me in Niger. Jiang Chen then hung up the phone. All of a sudden, he felt a piece of clothing gently draping over his back. Upon turning around, he was greeted by Aisha's tender but fiery eyes. You're up, Jiang Chen smiled and gently held the small hand on his shoulder. It's a bit cold here, especially in the morning. Are you hungry? I'll make you breakfast, Aisha said softly. Jiang Chen's eyes bored into Aisha's eyes. Being stared like that by Jiang Chen, Aisha's cheeks turned scarlet and whispered, What? Nothing, I've just realized you're becoming more and more beautiful. Jiang Chen grinned wickedly while staring into her eyes. Gently clutching her panicking hands, he pulled Aisha back into the house. Come on, we're getting that breakfast. Their breakfast at Premier Hotel was exquisite though somewhat bit expensive. After eating breakfast, Jiang Chen checked out at the front desk, and then while holding Aisha's hand, boarded the taxi and headed to Boris Bor International Airport. What luggage? Just store them directly in the storage dimension. After getting off the vehicle, Aisha returned to her usual cold expression and followed Jiang Chen half a step behind. At the airport gate, Jiang Chen met Nick along with 10 cane men who were hauling their suitcases. He greeted Nick and turned to look at the 10 soldiers of the former 92nd Mechanized Infantry. It's such a great honor. You've made the right choice. Jiang Chen smiled and extended his arms in a welcoming gesture. Not like we have much of choice, the man named Ivan shrugged. His stiff face contorted slightly before continuing, but the opportunities you provided are sure very attractive. Laughing, Jiang Chen's expression was very cordial. Of course, I've always been very good with my people. At least the old guy Anderson doesn't need to worry about housing anymore, said a huge bald man with a smile as he pounded the back of his comrade standing next to him. House? That's right. Ivan rolled his eyes and shrugged. I served the army for 25 years when the former Soviet Union still existed. Unfortunately, I have been enlisted in the Canyon Army. I was on the list for housing in 1987, but with how things are looking, it would take 100 more years before it would be my turn. That's nothing, said the bald guy, patting the guy who continued to remain quiet. It's even more unfortunate for Anderson. It was already his turn when his name was replaced by someone else. Don't keep using me as an example. Whoever wants to fight for those swindlers can go right ahead. "This country has nothing to do with me anymore," Anderson softly rebuked with an unhappy expression. "Okay, guys, why don't we chat in the waiting area?" A group of people standing in front of the airport looked out of place, however you look at it. Jiang Chen noticed that the police in the front door was deliberately looking in their direction. It was a critical period after all, so any group of people gathering around would cause suspicion. There was still an hour before the plane took off, and Jiang Chen was fooling around with Nick in the waiting area. Aisha was sitting impassively beside Jiang Chen and was holding a fashion magazine provided by the airport. It seemed like, after the shopping spree, some kind of strange interest was awakened in her. "Where have you been to these past few days?" "Went back home and then traveled for a bit," Nick responded succinctly and grinned. "Speaking of which, you didn't bring your family to Los Santos?" Jiang Chen asked, somewhat surprised. "They can't." Nick's face revealed a rare melancholic expression. Jiang Chen didn't know what to say. He seemed to have realized something as a wry smile appeared on his face. Looking at the flight information over his head, he appeared nostalgic and said, "Do you remember the wooden cabin in East? That's my home." "Sorry for making you remember something bad," Jiang Chen said softly. "It's okay, it's all in the past." Previously, Jiang Chen only heard Robert mentioning about Nick's hometown being in Kane. However, he didn't think that it would be in East and his house would be that cabin. Due of the heavy atmosphere, the conversation was halted. After looking at the time, Jiang Chen got up and walked towards the restroom. Before boarding the plane, he decided to take it easy first. But just as he was about to leave the restroom, he unexpectedly ran into someone who he's expecting to be there. The same gray vest, aquiline nose, Willie agent he met the day before yesterday in the ice cream shop. "You finally came looking for me. Speaking of which, I still don't know your name." Jiang Chen extended his hand with a smile. "My job means that it's inconvenient for me to reveal my name, but you may call me Merlin." Merlin shook his hand, but his eyes were locked on Jiang Chen. "Merlin, magician, your overtime is over." "That's right, thanks to you." Although he said thank you, there was not a trace of gratitude on his face. "Where is the sniper?" Merlin cut straight to the point. "In a house in East. I heard the endurance of snipers is not bad, so before I left I feed him well. Should be enough to sustain him for 3 days without a problem." Jiang Chen smiled. The expression on Merlin's face had not changed, and his hawk-like glare was still piercing. "His exact location. According to the agreement, you said you'll give us his coordinate before leaving the country." "It's on this USB." Jiang Chen casually took out a thumb-sized USB and handed it to Merlin. Merlin silently reached out to hold the USB, only to find out that Jiang Chen wasn't letting go. He cast a suspicious look at Jiang Chen. "I haven't boarded yet," Jiang Chen stated with a smile. "We'll keep our end of the bargain." Merlin's exerted a bit more strength. "But I don't trust that." Jiang Chen's grip on the USB remained firm. "Why?" Merlin's facial muscle was all wound up due to the pressure. "There is still half an hour before we board the plane. To ensure that I'll safely get on the plane and land safely at my destination, I just want to remind you one thing before giving this to you." Jiang Chen paused, smiled when he saw the tension on Merlin's face, before continuing. "I have encrypted the contents inside this USB. After inserting it in the computer for 1.5 hours, it would automatically unlock the encrypted information inside. If anything happens to me during this trip, I'm sorry, but KGB might get their hands on the sniper's coordinate location first." 1 hour was enough for the plane to land in Nigeria. After saying his piece, Jiang Chen let his hand loose without warning. Merlin clutched the USB awkwardly and bumped into the washroom door, stumbling a few steps backward. Staring intently at Jiang Chen, Merlin suddenly burst out laughing. "I didn't expect you to be a programmer." His original plan was to wait until they acquire the sniper's location and then immediately arrest Jiang Chen. There are far too many reasons for Willie society to do this. As for the organization behind Jiang Chen, ridiculous, why would they be afraid? Jiang Chen shrugged. "No, but I am the boss. I have a lot of competent employees." Naturally, the codes in the USB were Yao Yao's masterpiece. Good, I hope you never set foot in Kane again. Merlin took the USB, left words dripping with threats and walked away. I hope you'll be able to receive your salary sooner before your boss goes bankrupt. He shouted at his leaving figure before returning to the boarding area with a smile. He sat next to Aisha, who was still holding the same fashion magazine. Those people left. Aisha lowered her voice. The secret agents who had been sitting nearby had already left, and the waiting room seemed deserted for a moment. Yes, I had a talk with their boss. Which dress do you like? Jiang Chen skillfully changed the topic. Aisha blushed as her fingers rubbed against the page. This one, no, I already have enough clothes. This one should fit you nicely. All right, let's buy it. Copy the website and I'll show you how to shop online. Nick glanced at the two people and cracked a smile on their display of affection. He then looked at the clock on the wall again. It was almost time to board. Farewell, my hometown, I wish you peace. Chapter 152, The Last Stop. Niger Niamey International Airport. Buddy, haha, we meet again. Robert passionately greeted and embraced Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen awkwardly shoved him away. I think it's better if we just shake hands. No, this is to sincerely express my remorse. He pounded Jiang Chen's back quite vigorously. Then he walked in front of a Hummer and exaggeratedly opened the door with a teasing smile. Please get in the car, your honorable dictatorship. I still have a long way to go, Jiang Chen retorted with a smile. He took Aisha to sit at the back of the car, while Nick naturally took the passenger seat in front. Now that you think about it, I do believe fate has brought us together in the desert. Robert stepped on the gas, held the steering wheel and started the ignition. He remarked while smiling, last time it was in the desert in Iraq too. Last time I was there to wipe your ass for you. Hopefully, you won't get into trouble this time. Jiang Chen couldn't resist the temptation to mock him. Aren't you missing the point here? There's a guy from UA who runs an errand all over the world for you, a Slavic who went to the front line with you, and a beauty sitting beside you. Robert jested and looked at him through the rearview mirror of the car. Hearing this, although there was no visible change in Aisha's expression, her face turned into a crimson shade. Just focus on your driving. Stop talking nonsense anymore. Jiang Chen laughingly reprimanded him and then paused before asking, where's the location of the base? Sahara Desert, Niger. It's an undeveloped area in Agadez region. Better prepare yourself mentally as it could be quite desolated out there, Robert reminded. The outside of the airport was in Les Hill, and there were hardly any buildings in sight. Aside from the road, there were dust and yellow sands everywhere. A gust of wind would occasionally sweep a layer of dust. Moreover, it was probably the only airport Jiang Chen had seen without a taxi lane, a bus stop, let alone a subway. Damn, how could this place be so poor? He swore while he stared out of the window into the endless sand dunes that went as far as the eyes could see. How can you say that this is the capital? At the very least, it shouldn't be this undeveloped. Downtown is much better. It's like the suburbs of Los Santos. Robert laughed. 10 kilometers more to go. We're not that far. Speaking of poverty, Niger's Minister of Commerce Armani would like to meet you and invite you to dinner. To attract foreign investment, Jiang Chen asked dispassionately. He leaned back on the chair and yawned. Why don't you go on my behalf? I already bought 20 acres of wasteland. I'm temporarily not interested in investing in any other projects. No, there's actually more to it. Basic necessities such as water, power supply, food, ammunition that will be used in training, and so on, Robert reminded him. Those indeed posed as a concern. Jiang Chen pondered on it while pinching his chin. Military supplies that I can solve. As for the others, what do you suggest? Jiang Chen looked at Robert. For the power supply, my advice is to buy a few sets of fuel generators or a batch of solar cells. The sun is pretty intense here, so I think solar power would be our best choice. As for the water, it seems to be illegal to drill well in here. And I also don't suggest engaging in squabbles with the local tribes. I heard that even the Niger government couldn't control them, so it's best if we outsource them. Food and basic necessities can be purchased locally. The cost of living here can be quite cheap, especially the food. Then let's do that, Jiang Chen nodded. If that's the case, you definitely need to meet Armani, but before that, I'll send you to the hotel where you'll be staying. Robert shrugged and smiled. The car finally drove into the downtown area. Niger River ran through the city. The river was lush verdant, just like an oasis in the desert. In fact, it was not as bad as what Robert made it out to be. At the very least, Niamey, the capital of the country, didn't seem that bad. Although he hadn't seen the suburbs of Los Santos, when they reached the downtown area, the surrounding buildings looked rather sophisticated. He only stayed at the hotel for a short while before he changed into a suit Robert had prepared for him and got into the car. This time, instead of Robert's Hummer, it was Niger Department of Commerce for receiving VIP guests. They got off at a restaurant where they apparently received foreign guests. A black man in a suit walked toward him and greeted him with a smile. "Welcome, Mr. Jiang Chen. You must be the Oriental billionaire Robert was talking about." The elderly black minister warmly held Jiang Chen's right hand and shook it firmly. Much to Jiang Chen's surprise, Armani could actually speak in Han. "Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Armani," he responded to his enthusiastic greetings. "I knew a lot of Han comrades as outstanding as you. We have a lot of comrades here in Niger coming from Hua, so you can think of this place as your second home. Niger welcomes you," Armani said warmly, speaking in a rather fluent Han. "Haha, of course." Pleasantries completed, Jiang Chen and Armani walked into the restaurant with an entourage of bodyguards and other personnel in tow. This welcome ceremony was quite lavish. Seeing this, a sudden strange idea popped up into Jiang Chen's mind. He was wondering when he returns home for New Year, would his major bring a congregation of people to welcome him in a grand fashion such as this? He was, after all, the man who appeared in the Wall Street Journal. The government newspaper also lauded him for his achievement in the technology sector. Even in the entire province, not a lot of people could outshine him. Sheesh, it would be so cool to go home and be welcomed in such a grand fashion. Despite being in overseas, distance did not interfere with his wish-fulfillment fantasies. Armani invited him to sit with him. The side-by-side seating arrangement spoke volumes about how highly the Minister of Commerce regarded him. Naturally, looking from this angle, one could also see how poor Niger was. Perhaps because of the presence of numerous Han investors in Niger, Armani chose to discuss business during dinner. He clearly knew the intricacies of their culture, as he perfunctorily drank 2 glasses before deciding to stop. Obviously, he was drinking while talking business according to Han custom. After another exchange of greetings, Armani naturally led the topic into the right track. "Thank you very much, Mr. Jiang, for investing in Niger. Is there anything we can assist you with to make this process easier? The basic economic condition is excellent and we're now in the stage of rapid development. There are a lot of business opportunities to invest in." Listening to Armani's passionate speech or drivel, Jiang Chen couldn't help but ridicule him in his mind. "You don't even have cab at your airport, yet you have the audacity to say that your economic situation is good." But even if the heart said so, the words could not be said out loud. "Of course, I am very optimistic about the domestic development of your country, and that's exactly the reason why I'm establishing a security company and building a training facility here." Listening to this black uncle speaking for a long time, Jiang Chen still maintained his composure. The meaning behind these words was, "I have no interest in investing now." However, Armani was apparently not ready to give up that easily as he continued to enthusiastically discuss some other projects in great details. His meaning was obvious. "Give me some money right now. How about this? I have a proposal. To facilitate seamless transportation of goods, I intend to invest in road construction from the provincial capital of Agadez province to the undeveloped area." In fact, this idea was brewing in his mind for a while now, and it was an excellent opportunity to bring it up. As soon as Armani heard about the road construction, His eyes instantly brightened. If they could build roads, not only it would drastically improve the livelihood of people in the undeveloped areas, it would also strengthen the government's control over the rebellious tribes. Haha, Niger citizens will surely be very grateful for your generosity and friendship, Mr. Jiang. Don't mention it. It is up to you to study the specific planning of the road, and then we will discuss it further based on your proposal. Jiang Chen responded with a smile while looking at the eagle-eyed Armani. Finally, the dinner concluded in a harmonious mood. The Minister of Commerce personally sent him back to the hotel where he was staying. "How is it, my friend?" Robert asked while grinning at him. He was standing at the entrance of the hotel. "Annoying. Do ministers always talk this much? They're so damn desperate for an investment." That Armani was a rather interesting character, a politician with a flair for public speaking. There was nothing wrong with soliciting investment, but when Armani sensed his lack of interest, he became more assertive and went on forever. For a while there, although he knew that Armani was speaking Han, he had no idea what he was talking about. "Ha ha ha," Robert started to laugh hysterically and patted him on the shoulder. "My friend, now you understand my pain. The first day I was here, he basically serenades to me for the entire day. But I cleverly brought your name up and said that I was only working for you, and the real person with money is a guy named Jiang Chen." "That's not funny." Jiang Chen glared at him and entered the hotel. Robert caught up to him and started getting down to a more serious topic. "Simply put, it could be quite annoying to talk business with black people, but we can't just give them some candies and send them away. Tomorrow, we'll head over to Agadez province to inspect your military base." It's a training facility for a security company." "It doesn't matter since everyone already knows," Robert commented carelessly. Stopping in front of the elevator, Robert nudged him with his elbow and quipped, "We'll depart early morning tomorrow, so don't go crazy tonight." Without waiting for his reaction, Robert dashed into the elevator that's about to close. "This pervert," Jiang Chen said with amusement and shook his head. But at that moment, an image of Aisha dressed in a white floral dress last night appeared in his mind. "Oh, okay," Jiang Chen decided. "I'll sleep a bit later tonight and accompany her to try on a few clothes." Chapter 153, The Tuareg Tribe. In the morning, the tranquil Sahara Desert welcomed a group of strange guests. 3 Hummers galloped the vast, endless expanse of sand, leaving 3 trails of dust behind the undisturbed desert. "How much longer?" Jiang Chen asked in boredom while sitting in the back with his arms crossed. Aisha, who was sitting beside him, had the same emotionless expression, but from the dark, deep circles under her eyes, it was evident she didn't get enough sleep. "It's just right ahead of us. But first, we need to greet the chiefs of the nearby tribes," Robert yelled enthusiastically while driving. "Why do I feel that you get really excited when you're in the desert?" Jiang Chen glanced at him. "This feeling of freedom is something that you'll never understand." "This guy is crazy." Jiang Chen mulled things over while looking outside the window. The other 2 Hummers sat 10 veterans recruited as instructors. Compared to the energy here, theirs was much quieter. Soon the vehicle drove into a small sand dune with a harder surface. When Jiang Chen's vision suddenly cleared, he saw rows and rows of small huts. Primitive, ignorance, poverty. These 3 words summed up his first impression. Yellowish-gray house and courtyard piled up from gravel. Withered branches were tied together and used as the gate of the courtyard, and the windows were covered with dyed cloths like an ancient Arabic town in the 12th century. Every household kept a camel. It was said that here a man's social status was measured by how many camels he possessed. "I'm a bit confused. Perhaps you can explain to me our purpose of coming here," Jiang Chen asked helplessly. "Of course. It might be a tad difficult to understand based from the modern perspective. After all, we already paid the money and purchased the land from the government of Niger. A portion of that money was also used to compensate them for taking up their ranch. As far as the contract is concerned, the 20 hectares of land not far from here are ours, but according to the local customs, our identity is still that of a guest." So following their tradition, we must obtain their recognition first before we can settle here, Robert explained. That troublesome, Jiang Chen's mouth twitched. In fact, it's only a formality since they are more or less secularized. Robert shrugged and slowed down the speed of the car. Still, there are some benefits from respecting their local tradition. At the very least, we can harmoniously coexist without worrying about them giving us trouble, and they may even stand by our side during critical moments. I don't quite understand what you're saying. So who is the owner of this piece of land? Is it Niger, the Tuareg tribe? You can think of it as Niger as the king of the Middle Age, and Tuareg tribe as the lord of this piece of land. Roberts rolled his eyes as he gave an unlikely metaphor. If we get into a conflict with them, which side would the Niger government be on? Jiang Chen asked a dangerous question after listening to Robert's explanation. A troubled smile appeared on Robert's face upon hearing Jiang Chen's question. The Niger government will be delighted if we could wipe them out, but that's kind of impossible. Tuareg men are scattered throughout the desert, and rumor says that they have some unusual relationship with extremist organizations like Al-Qaeda. The Tuareg guerrillas also fought alongside Al-Qaeda during a riot in Mali. Robert paused when he noticed Jiang Chen's unresponsiveness. For fear that Jiang Chen might do something harsh, he immediately added, I suggest we better not clash with them. The people here are quite tough, and despite being poor, every household has an AK lying around. Don't be nervous, I was just asking, Jiang Chen quipped. When the car drove into the tribe, all natives cast the vehicles with a curious look. Due to the poor road condition, Robert rolled down the window and signaled the two vehicles behind to stay outside of the tribe. It was not a big deal. Following the local tradition shouldn't take long to complete. That's the food market over there, but I don't recommend you trying out the things they sell there. What a coincidence, I'm also not interested. Jiang Chen looked outside the window. A kid on a camel gave him a curious look, and his father, who was wearing a veil, led the camel out of the tribe. Aisha subtly glanced at the window and muttered one phrase, heresy. The car stopped. Following the direction of a black woman, Jiang Chen and Robert walked into the building of the central tribe. West Tuareg tribe, a nomadic ethnic confederation mainly distributed in the suburbs of the Sahara Desert in Africa, and a branch of the Berber clan spread throughout the vast region of North Africa. Renowned for their writing, language, and unique nomadic life, which were substantially different from those of their surrounding neighbors. Instead of a matriarchal social organization, Tuareg was a matrilineal society. Although they believe in Islam, women were not required to wear a veil. On the contrary, men 25 and above must wear a veil in the Tuareg clan society. What was more striking was its open marital values, wherein women could have multiple marriage partners, and in case of divorce, all assets would belong to them. Apart from these strange customs, they were naturally born warriors. There was a notable local motto: the desert holds no secret to Tuareg people. In this desert, they knew how to fight better than anyone else. During the Mali Civil War, Tuareg guerrillas delivered consecutive losses to the government forces. Moreover, because of its strong combat ability, there were a lot of Mediterranean dictators and warlords who were interested in their fighting prowess. The most famous one was Gaddafi, who particularly favored Tuareg mercenaries. After the outbreak of the civil war in Libya, Gaddafi even offered the Tuareg tribe a lucrative remuneration of $1,000 USD a day to help him quell an anti-government militant. Of course, no one knew if the money had actually been honored or true in the first place. Robert had, in fact, recommended to Jiang Chen that since they chose Niger as the location for the base, recruiting Tuareg people might not be such a bad idea. However, after some consideration, Jiang Chen still rejected his proposal. The main reason was Jiang Chen's lack of trust in their culture and religion, and also to avoid potential issues that could arise in the future. At least those refugees who fled their hometown would not suddenly clamor to go home. In any case, the refugees were more reliable. In the relatively spacious house, Jiang Chen saw the legendary tribal chief. Distant visitors, may your wealth be endless like the sands of the Sahara." The dark-skinned female chief nodded slightly, her hands clasped together. Perhaps because she often dealt with French people, her French was rather fluent. But regardless of how fluent she was, Jiang Chen, who only knew English, could not understand a thing, so he simply stood there and kept mum while waiting for Robert's next move. "Thank you for your generosity in sharing your land. May your tribe flourish and your camels grow in flocks," Robert responded in fluent French. Even now, Jiang Chen could not figure out just how many languages this guy knew. Upon hearing this, the elderly female chief cracked a smile, her wrinkles scrunching up together. The following ceremony was quite simple. A man, whose head was wrapped in a frighteningly thick turban, carried 2 bowls of camel milk and placed them in front of them. According to the locals' custom, the thicker the turban and veil were, the more respect they were showing to their guests. It was said that in the past, whenever a male guest visited here, he was also required to wear a headscarf, or at least his mouth must be covered. But now it appeared that they have made some concessions to foreign cultures in the process of adapting to modern times. It was unknown whether the female chief was chanting a mantra or praying, but she spoke for a long time before she gestured to the 2 people with a smile. Looking at that bowl of cloudy camel milk in front of him, Jiang Chen could not help but wonder if it was just freshly squeezed out. When he looked at Robert, the notice that this man's eyebrows were furrowed as well. "Is this really potable?" Jiang Chen whispered in English. "Yes, but trust me, you won't drink it again after you have your first." Although Robert's expression was somewhat bitter as he attempted a Herculean feat of downing the camel milk with his eyes closed. From the looks of it, this was his second time drinking this awful stuff. Jiang Chen was secretly speechless. Seeing Robert's swift action, the smile on the female chief's face became more brilliant. The faster the guest drank, the more it reflected their respect for the host. When she looked at Jiang Chen, however, her eyes grew even brighter. Robert had not even put the bowl down. Jiang Chen had already put the empty bowl on the table. It took Robert a while before he finally finished and placed the bowl on the table with a quivering hand. Thus, when he saw Jiang Chen's empty bowl, his eyes almost popped out from its sockets. After coming out from the tribal chief's house, the 2 men received a warm farewell. Back in the car, Robert hummed as he wiped his mouth. "SHT, I feel like I've got a layer of grease in my stomach," Robert complained as he looked at Jiang Chen oddly. "You okay with that strange smell?" "What strange smell? It was okay." Jiang Chen laughed loftily as he leaned back and then put his arms behind his head. Other than the grease that barely touched his mouth, he didn't drink a single drop, and all of it was sent to the storage dimension. He was getting more adept at using this ability. After their friendly interaction with the neighbors, the 3 Hummers returned to the road once again. Finally, Jiang Chen saw a castle in the middle of the desert. Future Security. Chapter 154, Future Security. Barbed wire fences, concrete watchtowers and buildings. These structures greatly resembled a small military base. "What do you think?" Robert turned around and smiled proudly. "Not bad." There was also a satisfied expression on Jiang Chen's face. "Very neat." The 3 Hummers stopped at the checkpoint at the entrance. The patrolling soldiers wearing dark sunglasses approached the car, and after verifying Robert's information, they performed a simple military salute and then released the checkpoint post. The soldiers patrolling here were mercenaries hired from a security company in South Africa. With Jiang Chen's arrival, 20 people in a camouflage combat uniform wielding M-series automatic rifles quickly assembled in a neat formation in the center of the base. These people only knew how to follow money and would not ask any questions. Their price was entirely based on the degree of danger of the mission, and Robert was able to negotiate with them for the price of $70,000 USD. As the situation in the region escalated, Jiang Chen made some adjustments to the refugees' recruitment plan after deliberating it with Robert. The original plan was to hijack refugee ships and then forcibly transfer them to the military base here. It was later changed to heading directly to the Syria border and masquerading as UA troops responsible for escorting the refugees and tricking them to getting on the vehicle that would originally lead them to Europe. As for tricking them, the answer was quite simple. A flyer and a poster. European Labor Migration Program. Any male between 1825 may register here. You can bring your spouse with you. Those who are interested may register here. The agency will arrange jobs for you. Required 100. Seeing that not only you could bring your spouse, and there was also a guaranteed work to boot, and not to mention these people were equipped with UA weapons, the registration turned out to be popular. After those who managed to qualify got into the vehicle, it didn't take long for them to realize that something was amiss. Upon confirming that they were heading in the wrong direction, the refugees began panicking and frantically scampered to get off the truck. But the mercenaries, who were merely doing their responsibility to complete their mission, remained unperturbed, and they forcefully dragged all the refugees back inside. After completing their escort duty, their mission was changed into guarding the refugees and preventing any attacks from extremist organizations or any other unforeseen situations. According to the contract, as soon as Jiang Chen's group arrived, they would immediately hand over the control of the base and depart. For them, this was probably the easiest task they ever had, even though the pay wasn't much. Seeing the retreating figures of the mercenaries, Jiang Chen gestured for the 10 Kane veterans to line up behind him and signaled Robert to turn on the speaker and gather the refugees to the square. The refugees were already converging in that direction. After witnessing the mercenaries, who had turned over the control of the base to Jiang Chen, drove away, they felt an amalgam of complex and confusing emotions. They previously thought those people were UA soldiers, who would take them to a safe location or at least a refugee camp near the border of a European country, but they didn't expect to be taken to a completely opposite direction and deep into the desert. At first, they thought it was the base of an extremist group, but it did not look quite like it in all respects. Other than preventing them from leaving, they didn't make many forceful demands. The soldiers put a number on them and even arranged rooms for them that were much more spacious than those from a refugee camp. And even if no one stopped them from leaving, there was nowhere they could go. This place was in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Without any means of transportation and sufficient supply, how far would their feet be able to take them? They would surely die if they met a sandstorm or if they got lost in the desert. After going through the initial phase of restlessness, they chose to wait and observe. At least these people didn't torture them, and there were not many restrictions on food and water. One could even say that life here was better than any refugee camps. Perhaps this place was the new refugee camp planned by the United Nations. After all, Europeans didn't want them to migrate to their country, so they funded the construction of facilities in the depths of the desert. There were a number of people with this kind of naive thinking. However, they were doomed to be gravely disappointed by Jiang Chen. Any gain had a price to it. Looking at the refugees standing all over the place, Jiang Chen tilted his head slightly and asked Ivan, who was standing on the side, "What do you think about these people? Do you have the confidence in training them?" Upon hearing this, a glimpse of pride flashed on Ivan's face. There was a time when he thought that he would only serve under a president who was not worthy of his allegiance and serve as a cannon fodder for the sake of ideals that were not worth sacrificing for. However, as he stood there looking at the advanced training facility and receiving the promised high salary, and when the boss asked him, "Are you confident?" the answer was a no-brainer. That would depend on what the boss wants. Ivan raised his head and replied firmly, as though he had just regained his pride as a soldier. Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows, his chin pointed toward the doorway, similar to the group of people that had just left. "Yes, boss," Ivan shouted vehemently, "but boss, I have a problem." "Oh, say it," Jiang Chen nodded, pleased with his determination. "I might go overboard." The soldier's eyes were burning with a fierce fighting spirit. Hearing that, Jiang Chen paused and then unexpectedly laughed. If you go above and beyond, I'll be sure to give you a bonus." Jiang Chen patted his shoulder quite vigorously and stood on the podium while smiling in front of the refugees. Sensing that an authoritative figure had stood up, the refugees mustered their courage to voice their doubts. "Who in the world are you? Why did you take us here? We want to go to Europe. I heard Frankfurt provided refugee camp. Why didn't you send us there?" Jiang Chen ignored these questions and continued fiddling with the microphone and turned on its switch. Buzz! The deafening static blared through the four corners of the square, and aside from Jiang Chen and the 10 instructors, almost everyone covered their ears while ducking down. Seems like the mic is now working. You all can understand English, right? Then I'll start." He ignored the pairs of frightened, angry, confused, and helpless eyes. He paused while renewing the feeling from the wasteland. "You might think that you've been deceived. Why didn't you disembark in Greece but had been taken to Central Africa instead?" Glancing around the crowd, Jiang Chen laughed and continued, "That's right, I did trick you." The crowd instantly erupted. "This is unlawful. Are you not afraid of being prosecuted by International Court of Justice? This is against the law. Send us back." "Send you back? Sorry, I'm not obliged to do so. But if any of you wants to leave, you can go right ahead. The door is open," Jiang Chen said with a smile as he spread out his hands. Nobody spoke. Everyone knew that it would be stupid to cross the desert without any means of transportation. Warm shelter, delicious food, and clean water. You can't deny that your life here is much better than your refugee camps on the Syria border. "But at least we would still have our freedom," someone muttered in the crowd. "Ah, freedom. You're so poor, you only have your freedom, and that's why you got on the truck, right? If you have money, you definitely could afford the ticket, isn't that right?" Jiang Chen smiled as he stared at the young man who interrupted him. The young man didn't expect to be stared at by the person on the podium. He swallowed and shrank back a little. But Jiang Chen did not seem to be looking at him and instead raised his hand and continued, "If you go to Europe, what then? You'll hole up in a government-provided shelter while spectating someone else's happiness. Quit your delusions. That place doesn't belong to you. You are but a refugee to them. Oh, you might say that you'll work hard, but when their natives are still unemployed, what kind of competitive edge do you think you'll have?" Hearing this, a lot of people lowered their head. They had given this problem some thought, but they never dared to think that far ahead. If one dwelled too much on misery, the courage to continue to move forward would become even slimmer, and not to mention the possibility of finding happiness in the future. Receiving donation, eating relief food, and becoming the type of person who people would find suspicious wherever you go. I'll take the responsibility of telling you that indeed, you'll be able to survive, but you'll also stay in the shelter for the rest of your life. One day when your child wants to go to an amusement park, but because you have no money, you can only rack your brains on how to persuade your child that it's not a fun place. I don't know how would you then feel about it. Do you still want to go to Europe so bad after hearing all that? Jiang Chen looked at the audience whose eyes had lost their vigor due to his momentum. Seeing this, he could not help the touch of smug smile slip through his face. "Where else can we go if we don't go to Europe?" A young man could not help but voice it out. "Even if I did trick you, it's not exactly a lie." Jiang Chen ignored his question and opened his arms and said while smiling, "Work, I've already arranged it for you. If you work for me, I'll provide you a stable living environment and a salary of $200 USD a month. Your salary will increase gradually depending on your performance. The contract period is 3 years, and after 3 years, you can then decide whether to leave and take your savings to any other country in the world or stay. But trust me, in less a year, you won't be thinking about that dumb thought. If you don't tell us the nature of work, how are we supposed to believe you?" There was another jarring question from the crowd again. "Nature of work, isn't that obvious?" Jiang Chen acted like he was surprised and made a show of looking around for a moment before continuing. "This is a military base. Other than soldiers, what else would it need?" Chapter 155. Once upon a time, there was an emperor. Another uproar. Naturally, the crowd flared up again. They thought that they would only be mining at an obscure place or engage in a hard labor, and the military facility was only there to supervise them. But what they did not expect was Jiang Chen wanted them to become mercenaries. Was this a joke? They left their home for the very reason of avoiding the war. If they were to participate in the battlefield again, wouldn't that defeat the purpose of fleeing? Someone asked this question out loud and denounced Jiang Chen that no one had the right to force civilians to wield weapons and set foot on the battlefield. Hearing this, all Kane veterans guffawed. You're asking me what's the point? You'll understand that in the future. I'm too lazy to talk nonsensical things. You're asking what right do I have? Of course none, but like I've said, if you want to leave, go right ahead and leave. You have half an hour to decide, and if you still remain in the base after half an hour, then I would consider that you acquiesce by default. After delivering his speech, no matter how these people protested, Jiang Chen directly did an about-face and left the podium. There obviously won't be an applause for him, and he certainly didn't need one. Just like the Fishbone base at the beginning, when they found themselves unable to resist and living, in fact, a comfortable life, they would gradually accept sooner or later. Moreover, Ivan would naturally train them to be absolutely loyal to the organization and shape them into becoming a soldier. Jiang Chen went next to Ivan and patted him on the shoulder. I'll leave them in your care. Yes, boss, the East Slavic soldier bellowed as he saluted and maintained his military posture. He nodded his head with satisfaction. He then waved at Aisha, who was standing quietly in the shadow, and then walked together towards the headquarters. While walking, Jiang Chen looked at Aisha and suddenly asked, Say, Aisha, your hometown is in Syria, right? IHaveAMansion. After a moment of hesitation, he continued, would my actions make you feel uncomfortable? After all, it's your hometown. No, I will always stand by your side. Aisha shook her head. Her cold face suddenly revealed a gentle smile. And you are a very gentle person. Jiang Chen almost choked on his own saliva. Are you kidding me? What do you mean by gentle? Although the first one moved me, I beg to differ on the latter part. He had never hesitated when killing except for the time when he made his first kill. Just then, a small hand reached out to clasp his hand. It seemed that after the night by the river, she fell in love with the feeling of holding hands, and she would always inadvertently reach out to his hand. Do you remember the time when you were in the truck? Aisha asked quietly. Although it was not clear why she mentioned the past, he still smiled and squeezed her hand nonetheless. Of course I remember, how could I forget? It was quite interesting to think that back then, he didn't even notice that Aisha was a girl. Even to a stranger like me, you still lent a helping hand when you saw my hungry eyes. Jiang Chen smiled. Do you mean those biscuits? Those were cheap. Aisha shook her head and clenched Jiang Chen's hand. Her mouth was slightly curved in a smile. But you still chose to share rather than to sit on the sidelines and watch. Being alone on her quest for freedom, she was already numb to apathy. Jiang Chen slightly lowered his head and fell into deep thought. Shared, have I really? Is this how people look at me? Aisha took a peek at Jiang Chen and smiled tenderly. There was once an emperor who was generous, kind, and brave. His territory stretched from west of Thrace, east of Indian River Plain, north of Amu Darya to the south of Persian Gulf. He acted as a conqueror in Damascus, but gained the respect of the people he conquered. The Egyptians built a city in the desert to honor his meritorious deed, she muttered to herself as though she's recounting a legend. Hearing this, Jiang Chen suddenly burst out laughing. But the empire was only short-lived. Was she referring to Alexander? Towards to this remark, she merely smiled and did not disapprove. Obviously, he could have just used bullets to suppress them, used their loved ones to threaten them, used force to make them surrender, made them live in tents, and made them live by his rules. But he didn't. The living condition here was much better compared to the refugee camp. He even provided them with a salary and hope. Feeling the warmth from his hand, Aisha closed her eyes, her lips curved into a smile. What kind of joke is this? Trek across the desert. The refugees were abuzz with protest. However, their objection fell on deaf ears as Ivan and the other instructors ignored the faces filled with righteous indignation and stood there like statues. The public outcry escalated but was cordoned off violent encounters. Force would always the best deterrent. All the trainers wore a pitch-black automatic rifle at their waist. The dark muzzle warned anyone who dared to incite violence. Half an hour passed quickly. Ivan cracked a smile and signaled his 9 compatriots to surround the refugees. In the command post, Jiang Chen and Robert stood side by side in front of the window while watching the situation in the field in good humor. "SHT didn't think that you'd have the gift of the gab," said Robert, his cigarette dangling in his mouth and his arms were resting on the windowsill. "I have a lot of talent." Jiang Chen grinned. He was also leaning against the windowsill. Rather than talent, it was more of unceasing practice. 3 months ago, if he were to talk in front of more than 100 people, he doubted if he would be able a single word. And now, they did not even need to prepare a speech. "Do you know what I was thinking when you were giving that speech?" "What?" Jiang Chen casually asked. His eyes were still on the field. A commotion started to break out in the field. Someone tried to grab Ivan's rifle, but was easily suppressed with a single move. "Hitler?" Robert made an amusing version of Fuhra and laughingly remarked, "But you didn't learn his way of provocation. You should have given them a loaf of bread and tell them, 'You can eat it as long as you swear your allegiance to me.'" "There was no need." Jiang Chen chuckled and got up from the window. "I've already given them enough incentives." With that, he left the command center. Staring at Jiang Chen's retreating figure, Robert shrugged his shoulders and once again resumed observing the square. The riot was already over. Perhaps due to the experience they gained in Cain, which trained them to be an expert in suppressing uprisings, Ivan was able to lead his 9 comrades to successfully control the situation. Although the refugees wore a scowl on their face, they still obediently divided into 10 columns, each led by a respective trainer. Their spouse and children were taken back to their assigned housing. The training started immediately. The first mission was to run 2 laps around the 20 hectares of the base. They would only be able to eat once they finished. Don't want to cooperate? Then starve together with your wife and children. If they only have themselves to think about, some of them would perhaps attempt to resist. However, hearing that it was not just them who would starve but also their family, everyone chose to compromise. Under the scorching sun, figures could be seen running around the base, leaving trails of dust behind them. When they dragged their exhausted body after finally finishing 2 laps, they all dropped to the ground. Not only did the ruthless instructors show not an iota of mercy, the devils also announced that the run would become part of their routine. Although they wanted to complain, they couldn't muster enough energy to do so. Fortunately, evening came, which meant that the training for today was officially over. When they dragged their beaten body to the cafeteria with their family and received their share of a hot meal, they suddenly felt that it didn't seem to be so bad. Roasted golden turkey, stewed mutton soup, bright green salad. As far as food is concerned, it was day and night compared to those of refugee camps. Maybe it was because of exhaustion after the exercise which stimulated their hunger. The dinner was especially delicious. A lot of people even had extra portions, and Jiang Chen didn't skimp on food. Hassan sat down beside his wife, Mary, carrying a bowl of mutton soup, and then grabbed a bun, dipped it into the soup and took a big bite. Looking at her exhausted husband, Mary anxiously reached out to him and wiped the dust off his face. "What did they make you do?" "Other than running, not much, but who knows what they'll do later. Damn it, those trainers are simply inhumane," Hassan cursed as he devoured the food in front of him. Because he expended quite a significant amount of energy, his appetite was huge enough to devour a camel. It was not clear whether it was intentional, but everyone there appeared to be a modern Christian, so there was no sign of veils and headscarves in the cafeteria. Hassan was munching his chicken and bread while he pondered about on the future. He was 20 years old, his wife 19. They were planning to have a baby last year, but the conflict suddenly escalated overnight as the shadow of IS enveloped half of Syria. Because he was considered a heretic, he naturally did not dare to stay in his hometown, so he took his wife away and came to the refugee camp on the border, not knowing whether he should consider himself lucky or unfortunate for being taken here. Becoming a mercenary, he never considered this position. But now it seemed that there were not many options left for him. "Will you go to the front line?" Mary reluctantly asked. "If I become a mercenary, probably," he grimaced and grunted as he stuffed his mouth with bread. He glanced at the trainers who were also having dinner in the cafeteria. He was very confused about what would happen in the future. But that 3-year contract gave him some hope. "After 3 years, let's have a baby. I will work hard to give you and the children a stable environment," Hassan promised. Mary stared at him. Her eyes were covered with mists, and then she lowered her head shyly. "Okay." In any case, since his family was already here, he would just need to do his best for them. He would just wait and see whatever happened in the future. Hassan's thought reflected the thought of other recruits in the base. At least for this meal alone, there's nothing to complain about. Chapter 156, Finally Going Home. Early next morning, a team of 10 men was running outside the base wall. They were led by their respective trainers and would have stamina training 10 kilometers away from their location. Jiang Chen's requirement for Ivan was he only had half a year regardless of what method he utilized. 6 months later, he wanted to see disciplined and fast-moving troops. Moreover, this unit should be loyal to him alone. It was easy to ensure the loyalty of the soldiers. First was money, and second was electronic collar. Other than the job contract, Jiang Chen also signed a 10-year confidentiality agreement with the 10 Kane instructors. Under the terms of the agreement, they must wear the electronic collar with information detection ability to protect themselves from information leaks in the entire duration of the term. In this regard, the 10 Kane trainers did not put up any resistance because it was only 10 years, and they did not have any intention of disclosing anything. 6 months' time was very short. It would be impossible to train a special force capable of a mixture of combat requirement. Other new recruits would have to stay in camp for 7 months. Although relying on the virtual reality system for efficient training would only require 1–2 months to complete the new recruit training regimen. However, in the absence of a basic foundation, carelessly bringing these high-tech products out in the open would be highly unwise, more so because he did not have 100 training equipment in the first place. But of course, Jiang Chen also made it clear to Ivan that he didn't need a special force, but a competent and modern infantry capable of siege warfare. They didn't need to be able to execute special missions. Merely being capable of fighting would suffice. As for their combat ability, there were a lot of ways to make up for it. Not enough stamina, then give an injection. An E-grade genetic vaccine was really cheap and common in the 6th Street. Although it was not as powerful as Jiang Chen's C-grade injection, it was enough to improve their constitution to that of special force level. The only reason he did not inject them yet was he wanted them to train their perseverance and endurance. They would be given an injection over the course of training. Although Ivan and the trainers were skeptical about the drug that could improve their physical shape, upon seeing the certainty in their boss, they finally believed it was real. In spite of their misgivings after being injected, they were surprised to discover that their strength and reflex improved by leaps and bounds. Only then their skepticism finally disappeared. They were now more confident with the 6-month deadline training mission. Of course, Jiang Chen didn't tell them it was a genetic medicine. He only told them it was a mysterious hand medicine. IHaveAMansion, that's right, it's a traditional hand medicine. To begin with, from a foreigner's perspective, hand medicine in itself was a very mysterious thing, and precisely because of its mysterious nature that he was not pressed to explain himself. It was also worth mentioning that genetic vaccine functioned by fine-tuning the genetic sequence of somatic cells and stem cells without affecting genes in certain cells. In other words, there was no need to worry about genetic issues. Bad marksmanship, then make the technology shoot for you. AK-47, M4A1, obviously they won't be using these junks. 100 years in the future, these seemingly decent rifles would be extremely weak. Just like how Thompson's submachine gun could still be used now, almost all new rifles could definitely outmatch its performance. The 150 Reaper's assault rifles that Jiang Chen brought from the Fishbone base, whether its stability, penetration, and accuracy, it outshined all modern firearms. After all, there was a fundamental difference between the structure of warfare in the future and the present. Even light infantries wore nano-combat suits as well as kinetic skeletons, not to mention the heavy infantries that were fully equipped with power armors. If the rifle penetration was low, it would be difficult to even penetrate the enemy's armor. Since this was a NATO standard Reaper assault rifle, its penetration capability was naturally unequivocal. Although it was normal in the future with highly advanced science, it was ridiculous in the modern world where it could easily penetrate through steel or concrete. Logically speaking, the higher the explosive power, the more recoil the solider would receive. But because of the special design of firearms, the recoil was significantly reduced. Furthermore, because of its compact internal design, needless to say, the accuracy was superb. The only problem was the ammunition. Because they couldn't use a modern ammunition without a secure base, Jiang Chen did not dare to move the bullet production line, so he could only carry the ammunition himself. Fortunately, the trade between the Fishbone base and the 6th Street had just been finalized, and the additional batch of ammunition he purchased had arrived just in time. He shipped 6 months' worth of training ammunition to the armory, which temporarily solved the problem. Other than rifles, with the development in the apocalypse side, Jiang Chen would continuously transport even more ridiculously incredible equipment to this world, such as kinetic skeletons, heat sensor grenade. Jiang Chen entrusted all responsibility of training to Ivan. The veteran was well respected among his peers, and so he was more at ease in leaving him with the day-to-day operation of the base. As for logistics, it was also easy to solve. According to Robert's suggestion, he set up an office for the future security in Niamey and hired local experts to handle the problem. The only thing he needed to worry about was to provide the operating cash flow to the company's account, and the daily expenses, salary and logistics, and other aspects of affairs would be coordinated by the office. At the end of each month, there would be a detailed bill sent to his email. After spending 2 days traveling between the base and Niamey, Jiang Chen finally settled everything on this side. The manager of future security was a man called Barclay, whom he found in the talent market in Niger. Despite being only 35 years old, he already had 15 years of relevant work experience. He looked stable and trustworthy. The labor cost in Niger was very meager. $400 USD monthly salary was already considered high in the local market. Towards such generous paycheck, the black guy was ecstatic as he promised to take care of everything with perfection. Jiang Chen was pleased with his eagerness because it meant he could worry less about it. With the base starting to operate on the right track, it was finally time to go home. When they headed to the airport, they took Niger Ministry of Commerce vehicle. As a good host, the Minister of Commerce Amani personally sent them to the airport. "We hope you come back soon, Mr. Jiang. You will always be Niger's friend." Armani shook hands with him enthusiastically with a bright smile on his face. $2 million worth of investment to build a road from the national highway to the undeveloped area. He had gained a lot from this friend of his from the East, and so he was naturally very enthusiastic. "Of course, I wish our friendship will last through eternity. Thank you for your warm hospitality. Farewell." Jiang Chen released his hand and then led Robert, Nick, and Aisha into the airport. After passing through security, Robert heaved a sigh of relief and rolled his eyes. "I can finally leave this goddamn place. Heck, when I get back, the first thing I'll do is to take a nice, long shower and then go to the hospital to get a gastric suction." Then spread your seeds to some Hollywood chicks, Jiang Chen teased. Of course, nightlife is necessary to relieve some stress at work, you know. The next time you come to Los Santos, I'll take you to experience it, Robert chuckled. What about you? What are you planning to do when you get back? Shower, sleep, and then rest for a few days. Jiang Chen shrugged and sat on the chair in the waiting room. Aisha sat right beside him, eyes looking everywhere. However, much to her disappointment, unlike the airport in Vate, there was no magazine to pass her time on. Don't be so boring, you have to learn to enjoy life properly. Robert sat on the opposite side of Jiang Chen, crossed his legs, and leaned comfortably against the seat. Then what's the use of making so much money? Nick scanned the lobby of the waiting room, and then headed for the coffee machine. Haha, how do you know I didn't enjoy myself? Let me tell you, when I made my first money, the first thing I did was to spend it lavishly, Jiang Chen said proudly, not in the least bit ashamed. Oh, I didn't expect this. Haha, by the way, buddy, I've got a fun idea. Why don't we share what we did with our first money? Robert was suddenly interested and sat up straight. Meanwhile, Nick came over with a coffee and sat down next to Robert. We'll get Nick to go first. Robert patted Nick on the shoulder while laughing. Nick took a sip and looked at Robert with confusion. After hearing the explanation, the taciturn Slavic man gave the most ordinary statement. Bought a house in Los Santos and then got a dog. As far as UA citizens' lifestyle was concerned, his couldn't be any more average. Okay, I take back what I said. Nick is the most boring person. He ignored Nick's confused look and then coughed and continued. My turn. I remember it was 5 years ago. I was still helping a Mexican smuggled illegal firearms. On the day of payout, he gave me $50,000, and the first thing I did was. At this point, Robert's face went red out of nowhere, scratched his nose, as he was too embarrassed to continue. I found 2 16-year-old high school students at the bar. In short, I got rid of my virginity. Robert had completely abandoned his sense of shame. He then looked at Jiang Chen. Okay, buddy, your turn. This old pervert, Jiang Chen laughingly thought in his mind. The first sum of money. He wanted to say what happened in Sanya, but suddenly halted as he awkwardly looked at Aisha. He seemed to be somewhat similar to Robert, the old pervert. After making money, the first thing he did was go to Sanya and got himself a lover. Sensing Jiang Chen's gaze, Aisha looked back at him puzzled. However, her pure expression made it even harder for Jiang Chen to open his mouth. Robert smirked and then whispered, I understand, we're all men here. No, wait, my situation is a little different from yours. In any case, saying it's his first. No need to explain, I understand. Fuck, what do you know? Chapter 157, I'll teach you fitness. This past couple of days, Jiang Chen was very idle. The first step of the island capture project had been completed, and 6th Street had also been stabilized. Out of nowhere, he suddenly found himself free. He walked out from the bedroom, yawning. After a brief wash, he went to the kitchen and sat across Aisha while stretching. Did you stay up late again? Aisha asked with concern. Played a bit too late last night. Jiang Chen reached out and grabbed a slice of toast. Coffee, toast, and omelet for breakfast. Aisha's cooking was getting better. While munching, he reached out and turned on the TV. Don't sleep too late, Aisha reminded softly. MHMM. He took a sip of coffee, and the bitterness made his brain sober. The widescreen TV was playing the news. Yesterday noon, a crossfire occurred in the northern suburbs of East Kane, the largest one since the turn of the year. The civilian forces used cannons, self-propelled artillery, and other heavy weapons against the government-controlled area. Currently, Minsk Agreement is in name only. On the other hand, UA accused Russia of deploying artillery on the border. Watching blankly at the artillery bombardment on the news screen, Jiang Chen took a bite of the toast. Did they start fighting again? Truth be told, seeing the cannon homing on the screen could not be compared to the astonishment of seeing it in the front line. Aisha appeared to be indifferent towards these things and was concentrating on her breakfast. I'm going rusty these days, Jiang Chen complained out of boredom. Aisha put the omelet on the toast, blew a few times, before taking a huge bite. After hearing how Jiang Chen felt, she hesitated a little before suggesting, "How about I teach you a good workout?" Workout? Jiang Chen was stupefied. I've taken the injection, so even without exercise, I can still maintain my body in tip-top condition. He simply had to praise the beauty of science and technology. In addition to physical fitness, there are still other benefits to exercise, such as maintaining your figure and keeping your body flexible, Aisha muttered. Figure? Speaking of this, I still haven't touched the fitness equipment that we bought. It's always you who have been using it. Jiang Chen scratched his chin thoughtfully and suddenly clapped. Then it's decided, later you can teach me to exercise. IHaveAMansion. Aisha smiled tenderly and nodded. Shortly after breakfast, the two stood face to face on the yoga mat. Aisha had already changed into a workout outfit of a small black top. Her brown color was tied into a ponytail, looking lively and enticing. Curves outlined by tight clothes, bumps faintly visible. Guess it would be troublesome if he continued to stare. Jiang Chen subtly moved his line of sight. A dazzling selection of fitness equipment comparable to those of outside gyms was located on the third floor of the home gym. At the corner, a virtual reality training chamber could be seen, and before entering the password, it looked like an oddly shaped, covered bathtub. Fitness is divided into two kinds. One is aerobic exercise such as treadmills and bicycles. The other is non-aerobic exercise such as sit-ups and weightlifting. Without noticing the strange look from Jiang Chen, Aisha went to the next exercise equipment and started explaining earnestly. When it came to exercise, she was naturally quite experienced. After all, she spent almost all her days in the gym. If it was not completing her daily homework in the virtual reality, it was using this equipment to exercise her body. After listening to Aisha explain the key concepts, the next step, of course, was the practical application. Jiang Chen twisted his neck as he eagerly stepped on the treadmill and started it under Aisha's guidance. Speed 10. I don't seem to be feeling anything. According to the value on the EP, his muscle strength was already at 30, his reflex was nearing 29, and thus this type of exercise was indeed too simple for him. Impatiently, he pressed the plus sign button, making the speed increased until it finally stopped at the limit of 30. His feet were practically dancing, but he still didn't feel an iota of pressure. There's no point in running so fast, Aisha smiled wryly. Why do I feel that this treadmill is pretty much useless to me? Jiang Chen had a similar wry smile and pressed the minus button until the treadmill came to a slow stop. After Jiang Chen got off from the treadmill, Aisha took over. She took a deep breath and pressed the start button. Speed 5. Although the injection of that weird medicine improved a lot of aspects of your body quite significantly, daily exercising to maintain your health is still important. Not so fast, jogging should suffice. This helps tone the body and keeps the body flexible. While jogging in constant speed, Aisha was explaining it to Jiang Chen simultaneously. Flexibility, body coordination, Jiang Chen nodded thoughtfully. But when he thought about body shapes, for some reason, the first thing that came into his head was the sexy vest line of her waist. And looking at her shoulders and arms moving rhythmically, along with the jiggling of her firm and small breasts. Not good, nosebleed. Jiang Chen embarrassedly covered his nose and quickly looked away. A good thing that nothing came out of his nose. Aisha gave him a puzzled look. Done with her demonstration, she turned off the treadmill and jumped off. Now for the non-aerobic exercise. Where should we begin? Let's start with that. Looking around, her eyes lit up when she spotted the elliptical trainer near the door. An odd-looking equipment connected to all four sides, which Jiang Chen had seen before in the university gym. Put simply, by sitting there, you can perform pull-ups, core exercise, parallel bars, and other series of complex exercise. I rarely use this because it will easily build up muscles, but it's suitable for guys. Aisha sat on top of it and smiled softly at Jiang Chen. I'm going to demonstrate for you. She adjusted the weight to 20 kg, took a deep breath, and extended both of her arms up high while holding the bar. Too much power. A weight of this level was naturally very easy for someone like her with a genetic vaccine, but even so, due to the tension made from the exertion of her arms, the round softness on her chest looked like it was about to pop out. Jiang Chen unconsciously swallowed his saliva. Although he knew it was bad to gawk at certain parts of a girl, still, he was unable to move his gaze away. However, this wasn't the most troublesome thing. Having finished with the stretching exercises of her upper and lower muscles, Aisha, who remained oblivious to his gaze, put her arms against the pad of the butterfly clips, and then both of her arms snapped towards her chest. Because of the pressure, the soft protrusion was squeezed under the force of her arms. Worse still, because of the aerobic exercise, Aisha's forehead was sweating profusely. The small top was becoming more transparent as it got stuck on her skin. What's the problem? Aisha looked perplexedly at Jiang Chen, who was covering his nose. Nothing, my nose is just a little bit itchy. Ha ha ha. Jiang Chen laughed dryly. He did not want to admit that he was thinking of naughty things while she was teaching so earnestly. While still confused, Aisha didn't pursue the subject. She pressed her legs against the pad, ready to demonstrate the next set of moves. However, at this time, she accidentally saw something she shouldn't have seen. Because Jiang Chen was also wearing workout clothes, the design of the sports pants was rather loose. That tin-shaped bulge. Aisha's cold face turned crimson. She ducked her head down shyly, fingers rubbing absent-mindedly against the training equipment. Do you want to?" she uttered in a quivering voice. Hearing this, it was Jiang Chen's turn to blush. His conscience told him that he should refuse this time to show his integrity and solve this misunderstanding. Yes, he nodded without thinking. Although his thought was very praiseworthy, his mouth and body, on the other hand, were both very honest. Then let's go too. Here is good. Eh? It's already lunchtime when they left the gym. Seeing the time on the EP, Jiang Chen could not help but smile wryly. Now, with Aisha feeling disoriented, she definitely would not be able to cook anymore. What a blunder! He shook his head and went into the kitchen. He turned on the rice cooker, poured half a cup of rice into it, and mixed it with water. Putting on the apron, he took a spatula and cooked the scrambled eggs with tomato, which he hadn't cooked for a long time, and then he made a cucumber soup. This was the limit of his cooking, as he certainly didn't know how to cook lamb and beef. But this should be all right for today. He brought the dishes on the table while humming. He then returned to the kitchen and removed the dough from the fridge. Aisha was still not used to eating rice. It was usually Jiang Chen who ate rice, and she with her bread. He stuck the dough into the microwave, patted his hand, and pressed the start button. Watching the golden bread spinning in the microwave, he narcissistically touched his chin while nodding. Why am I so talented, capable of doing business and capable of cooking? Wait, this shouldn't be how a man is described. Just then, he suddenly felt a soft touch behind him. A small hand came around him from behind and embraced him. Sorry, I've been too rough. Are you feeling better? Jiang Chen said as he turned around and scratched his head awkwardly. Thank you. Thank you? Wait, what are you crying for? Yesha's face was tightly pressed against his warm back. She didn't respond and only rubbed the corner of her eyes against his clothes. Just 10 minutes ago, she slowly recovered from her woozy state. When she realized it was already lunchtime, as a competent wife, which she'd always strictly told herself to be, she immediately got up, leaned on the wall for support, and dragged her body to the kitchen. When she saw the dishes on the table, for some reason, she felt her eyes tearing up. She gently moved to the kitchen door and saw the hot bread that Jiang Chen made for her. She stepped forward and embraced him, her face pressing tightly against the warm and strong back, and her delicate eyelashes closing. Sorry for hurting you in the future." "No, this is good," Aisha murmured happily. Chapter 158, A Popular Game. After lunch, Aisha returned to the gym saying she was going to clean the place. After all, she had been injected with a genetic vaccine, and thus she was almost completely recovered at the moment. Jiang Chen was sitting on the sofa while watching TV to pass the time. Yawning, he was about to get up and go back for a nap when his mobile phone suddenly rang. He took out his mobile phone and read, "Zia Shiyu." He pressed the answer button and lazily put the phone to his ear. "Hello, what's up?" "MHM, I have something to tell you. It's about a game." Zia Shiyu's excited voice came through, which made Jiang Chen extremely surprised. "I guess it's a good news," Jiang Chen laughed. "That's right." Zia Shiyu leaned back against the office chair with a rare proud smile appearing on her face. "After a period of marketing and beta testing, our company's first mobile game, New Era, is now officially live. According to the recent daily statistics that had just been released, its first day of downloads exceeded 15 million mark, setting a record for highest downloads for mobile games. After practicing in front of the mirror numerous times, when Zia Shiyu finally shared the good news with the boss, her voice still went off-key due to extreme excitement. "What the fuck?" The news practically made Jiang Chen jumped up from the sofa. No cursing please," Zia Shiyu admonished lightly before continuing. "According to the server's data, the highest number of concurrent users broke through 5 million. It's better for you to come to the company this afternoon, so I can show you the back-end stats directly." "I'll be there right away." After saying that, Jiang Chen hung up the phone and was immediately out the door. Wanga University, men's dormitory. A guy with a pair of glasses was staring at the screen of his mobile phone, his fingers moving swiftly on the touchscreen. His spectacles reflected the fighting scene of a role-playing game character. "For eyes, what are you playing? Or are you watching porn?" Tian Zhangji, his bunkmate, moved his chair closer and stretched his neck to take a peek at his screen. Tian Zhangji had just finished playing League of Legends and had almost smashed his keyboards because of those noobs. He was so angry that he didn't want to play anymore. After 20 losses, he closed the game directly, and then opened the file and uninstalled the game. This was his 10th time of uninstalling this game. Most online games were either filled with RMB players, or filled with cheats. Although a lot of noobs played LOL, the quality of the game itself was still quite good. At least, the RMB skins wouldn't increase the user's attack damage. Thus, after his anger had abated, he would find himself unable to stop from downloading the game again. Despite that, every time he finished uninstalling, he would swear that he would chop his hand off if he ever installed it again. Chen Hong cast his friend a sidelong glance before returning his gaze back to the screen, and then controlled his character to the direction of the main city. "What are you being so mysterious about?" Tian Zhangji had just AFK'd, so he had nothing better to do. He then got up and stood behind him. Chen Hong ignored him and continued to stare intently at the screen. Just then, the dormitory door opened and Gao Fei, who had just finished playing basketball, walked in. "Yo, Four Eyes, didn't you say that only dumbass play mobile game? Then why are you playing it?" Gao Fei quipped. He curiously stood behind Chen Long trying to see what he was playing. "What, no way, is this truly a mobile game?" As a result, Gao Fei was also unable to peel his eyes off the screen either. The texture of the image, the detailed character design, as well as the spectacular gameplay, those 3D mobile games are nothing compared to this. No, not just mobile games, even Skyrim on his desktop couldn't compare to this game. "That's right, this is not a mobile game, and that's why I'm playing it." Chen Hengteng pushed his eyeglasses up and scowled at the completely stunned Tian Hongji. Gao Fei gulped and jeered. "The graphics is so good, the game content must be meh." Chen Hong glanced at him before continuing. "Open world and 2.1 continental scale map. It combined the adventure element of an RPG and the management element of an SLG. Player can choose to roleplay as an adventurer or become a lord managing a piece of land. You can also open a business and become a merchant to fight pirates in the sea." Whether it's the graphics or the content, even if it's compared to PC games, it's a 3A godly masterpiece, Chen Hong said with absolute certainty. Although he had always been extremely critical when it came to games, he had yet to find any flaws in New Era. Could your crappy phone even handle a map with the size of 2 continents? Tian Zhangji's jaw was about to drop to the ground. He felt like his LOL addiction was still not beyond redemption. The game is only 300 MB. 300 MB, you're pulling my leg, Gao Fei uttered in complete disbelief. The company stated that they used the newest data compression technology as well as cloud computing technology. Anyway, I don't understand any of that stuff. I only can care about playing. Oh, for a day, I consume 10 MB of data, so it's not very high. Chen Hong killed another monster and deftly picked up the loot of silver coins and equipment, and then locked onto the next one. I can see that you have been killing monsters for a while now. Don't you find that boring? Tian Zhangji noticed that he had only been killing monsters after watching him play for a long time. Sure, the fighting scene and graphics were great, but wouldn't it be too boring to be hacking monsters constantly? Would you still feel bored if there's money involved? Chen Hong responded to him as though he was talking to an idiot. Money. RMB, you know that, don't you? He added, sighing. What the fuck, the in-game currency can be exchanged for RMB? Gao Fei asked in disbelief, his eyes almost popping out. The game operator doesn't exchange gold coins, but they offer a platform similar to Diablo 3's auction house. Players are free to price and sell gold coins on a consignment basis. This system is somewhat similar to the stock price, where the lower price is given preference. The game operator will only collect 5% commission fee, and they only take 10% commission for the equipment auction. While speaking, Chen Hong's eyes were burning with passion like crazy. During beta testing, Future One distributed a high amount of activation code to VIP members. There's quite a number of wealthy players playing this game according to the official data collected during the beta phase. That's to say, there is a high probability that RMB players would beat your sorry ass, Gao Fei said in derision. That's how an average person would think. Chen Hong cast him a haughty look. New Era didn't create an item mall. The purchase points can only be used to expand the warehouse or purchase skins that don't affect the balance of the game. In other words, it's as similar to LOL Store. Tian Zhangji's eyes lit up, and he suddenly felt an urge to download and play the game. Chen Hong ignored his friend's question and muttered, "Do you remember what I said before? There are many ways to play this game. You can be an adventurer, a lord, and so on." Does it has anything to do with those RMB players? Gao Fei asked, frowning. Of course. Chen Hong's eyes were practically indistinguishable from gold coins. He licked his cracked lips before continuing. The condition to become a lord is one has to buy a city lease for 100,000 gold coins and then get the city qualification. Imagine if you were a rich player, would you rather hunt monsters like what I'm doing, or would you rather become the lord of a city with countless followers? That's nonsense, Gao Fei scoffed, but he seemed to have suddenly thought of something as his eyes widened. Wait, if the city lease costs 100,000 gold, the auction house. That's right, if you play the game normally, it would be impossible to obtain 100,000 gold coins in such a short amount time. Killing a single boar would only drop 2 silver coins, and killing 50 would barely give you 1 gold coin. So to become a lord, the only way to acquire gold coins is through the auction house. But would there be that many people willing to buy a city lease? Tian Zhangji asked. Let me give you a straightforward data. At present, the price of a single gold coin in the auction house is set to 5 RMB, so for every 10 boars I kill, I would make 1 RMB. The more Chen Hong talked, the more motivated he became. What the fuck, a land lease will cost 500,000 RMB? That is insane, Gao Fei uttered in disbelief. You noob, there are rich people who are not afraid to squander 1 million while playing Plants vs. Zombies. Don't you know building a territory is similar to farming? Moreover, through taxation, production of materials and other ways to earn money, would you still be worried about not making a return? I'll tell you a rumor that I heard from one of my friends. Have you heard about Blood Sea Guild of Sword 4? Because of the popularity of New Era, they are planning to switch to this game. They are also currently raising funds in preparation for something big. Not only wealthy people, a lot of game workshops are also eyeing this city lease, so you can just imagine the future of this game. Isn't Sword 4 a PC game? Tian Zhangji could not help but ask out loud. If the mobile game is more fun than PC game, would you rather play a PC or a mobile game? The future belongs to the mobile platform. Chen Hong himself was becoming passionate about the future. Not only that, it can also be said that city building is the biggest feature of the game. The sandbox-like settings would allow the players to design their city based on their own preference. The city can be built anywhere from a certain distance from another city, and depending on the terrain and the map itself, the established city will receive a corresponding reward that would allow recruitment of special NPCs to attract other solo players. Do you know what this means? This means the earlier the city is established, the higher your advantage will be. You can get mines that produce iron ore, coastal areas fit for ships to dock, as well as unique NPCs roaming on the map. All major guilds are buying gold coins in order to seize those good spots. My plan right now is to kill monsters to gain gold coins and then sell the gold for money. Once I leveled up, I will explore the deeper parts of the continents. It'll be great if I can trigger some hidden mission. That would be really crazy. An ambitious expression appeared on Chen Hong's face. But wouldn't the value of gold depreciate after a while if everyone purchased the city lease? Gao Fei asked anxiously. The reason why he was asking was because he suddenly had the idea of making money from the game. Just killing 10 monsters would earn him 1 RMB. This was something really enticing for someone who doesn't have much pocket money. You're overthinking it. Wouldn't you need to build establishments after building a city? Wall, city hall, residential buildings, farm, ect, all of which cost money. In addition to city lords, there are sea explorers. Although putting up a shop would not cost 100,000 gold, a small shop would at least be 500. As for the mega vessel, it costs 1,000 gold and above. The auction house wouldn't interfere with game content, and the difference between the demand for gold and RMB would prompt frequent trading between the players. As long as the operator continued to push new game contents which would prevent the value of gold from depreciating, the game would continue to survive. Considering the impeccable game quality, the number of users, as well as the continued growth of Future 1. Gao Fei's eyes turned brighter and brighter the more he thought about it. For eyes, I have an idea. Why don't we of Dorm 101 start a game workshop? 1 RMB players, the equivalent of pay to win players. Chapter 159, The Trap. Whenever Lingyu Technology's name cropped up, most mobile games fanatics would automatically think of games with unique designs and outstanding gameplay, such as IHaveAMansion and Dota History. Inside the Lingyu Technology building in Wangai City, Ling Zhongshan was sitting in front of the office table with a dark face as he silently looked at the information on his table. The manager responsible for mobile game development, IHaveAMansion, had his head lowered while sweating profusely and waiting for the boss, reprimand. After a long while, Ling Zhongshan finally spoke. In 1 month, Dota History's ACU dropped by 10% and KPI indices decreased by 17%. This is the goose that lays a golden egg you're telling me about. And what about IHaveAMansion? What's your team doing for the past month? His voice was trembling due to rage. ACU referred to the average concurrent users, while KPI referred to key performance indicators. The first was related to the sustainability of the game, while the latter was related to the game's profitability. At this moment, however, in front of him was a report that showed the stats of their 2 most profitable mobile games were in great decline. It was still fucking okay last month. Bang! Ling Zhongshan threw the document in his hands on the table with great force. His lungs were on the verge of exploding due to anger. The scolded IHaveAMansion had a face of being greatly wronged. It was really not his fault. Swallowing, he tried to organize his sentence in his head before explaining quietly to his boss, "Boss, this really cannot be blamed on us." Taking a deep breath, Jiang Chen picked up the cup on the table to take a sip of tea and gradually calmed the anger in his chest. It's that new era, right? IHaveAMansion. IHaveAMansion felt secretly relieved that the boss understood the situation, but the atmosphere remained tense as ever. These two games of the company were very profitable, and Dota history had a record of a staggering cash flow of 200 million per month. Although the result was somewhat watered down, it was not far off from the truth. The issue had to do with Dota history, despite running for over a year, had nothing new to offer. Unlike PC games, mobile games, real-time interactive capability was already very limited. Thus, it was destined to severely limit the player's likelihood to stick to the game through social interaction. It could be said that when mobile game players quit the game, the reluctance to part with the game would be mainly due to the equipment and diamonds, and not because of their good friends in the game. After last year's success, the active users of Dota history had been gradually decreasing. However, IHaveAMansion had still a bit of skill, as he led the entire project team to devise numerous unique events which allow the KPI to barely hit the mark. But who would have thought that a highly competitive game would take the market by storm, and took a huge piece of the pie away? Jiang Chen fell into a deep contemplation while looking at the report on the table. As the president of a corporation, he obviously would not be clueless about the existence of the most promising mobile game in the market. The game's massive content made it difficult for players to get bored due to repetitive gameplay. It also offered real-time interaction comparable to that of PC games, which meant that when players play the game, it really felt like an online game rather than playing just with a single list of friends. And more importantly, how come it didn't consume a lot of data? Jiang Chen was so jealous that he wanted to spew forth profanity, or perhaps he had already cursed it in his mind. The 3 points above were the major limitations of today's mobile game development. All major game developers that wanted their share of the market were racking their brains to come up with the best possible solutions to overcome these 3 major hurdles. Too much game content. If users saw a game with a few gigabytes, they would be too lazy to download it. High hardware specs. This would cause lag and make the phone hot. High data usage. This might make telecom companies happy, but this would definitely enrage the users. Thus, the game would naturally be unable to survive. How to use software packers to include more game contents that most of the mobile phones would be able to run, and would not consume too much data. This has always been a great source of concern in the industry. Fortunately, came a software which realized the inspiration of many programmers. It was Future One. By simplifying the algorithm, the performance of mobile phones was increased by 3 times, and energy consumption was reduced twice as much. This would undoubtedly enable them to recapture the ideas that had been cut off before. Jiang Chen was indeed a man with foresight. When he saw the download record of Future One continually being refreshed, he immediately issued instructions to IHaveAMansion to gather people from project development team to develop high-specs, large-scale mobile game. The idea was undoubtedly insane. At present, there was not a single mobile game that could meet the standard of the so-called large-scale mobile game in the market, despite every developer's bluff and bluster. To deploy a large amount of technical resource to venture into an entirely unknown market was unquestionably a huge gamble. The reason for making such decision was because he was able to foresee the change in the future of the development of mobile games. Given how Future One had turned out, the future would have high-quality games with high resolution and rich, diverse game contents that could compete with PC games to fill the gaps in the current market. PC and console games would continually be pushed out of the market, and the mobile game industry would only going to get bigger. The only thing he needed to consider was how to gain the upper hand and acquire a bigger slice of this pie. However, his ambition was already deflated before it was realized. Turned out that Future One had a far greater ambition. Before they gained a foothold in the market, they quickly launched an independent game and ventured into the mobile game market. New Era. In the beginning, Jiang Chen had not given their promotion of Open Game World, Sandbox Game Map, the strongest freedom in history much thought yet. Who didn't know how to brag, which developers did not vaunt their own game. Not just the players, even their own marketing staff didn't believe in the marketing. But when the game went online, Jiang Chen's expression instantly turned green with envy. He heard a lot of empty promises before, but it was his first time seeing all the promises got fulfilled. Its unbelievable game quality set a whole new record in terms of gameplay. With the support of the Future One's user base, New Era took the market by storm with no less than the impact that Future One produced and once again become a hot topic of the media. Future One made headlines again. Without a doubt, New Era had seized the initiative and took the lead in this market, which he had such high hopes for. How are things going on your end? Jiang Chen no longer reprimanded IHaveAMansion and instead asked about the large-scale mobile game that was currently under development. Hearing this, IHaveAMansion looked inconceivably bitter. It is almost developed and currently in alpha phase, but compared to New Era. As the project manager, no one knew better than him the product his own team was developing. If the quality was almost comparable, he would at least try to boost his own project by a bit to let the boss see they really tried and achieved some results, however, after personally playing New Era for a few hours. He went on playing for a while, and it was undoubtedly fun that he couldn't help but expand the warehouse. They had completely lost. I know hard, just do everything you can to utilize your ability and creativity. Try a bit harder in the operations, Jiang Chen advised exhaustedly as he rubbed his temples. Yes, boss, IHaveAMansion nodded and quickly left the office. Elbows on the table, Jiang Chen stared at the report blankly. He's already 50 years old, and regardless how tough his body was, his temple already had a white streak on it. After being in business for so many years, and starting with only a handful of people in a 10 SQM studio to gradually becoming the industry leader in the mobile game development, it was his first time experiencing such troublesome issue. What made it troublesome was not the game itself, rather the chain reactions that came with it. The mobile game industry was huge, too big to imagine, so no matter how voracious the appetite of the future technology was, it would be impossible to completely dominate the industry. In most users' phone, it would be impossible not to have more than one game. Thus, even if they lost the large-scale game market, Lingyu Technology still maintained a strong market share within the industry. However, with the emergence of this large-scale mobile game, user spending habits would undoubtedly have a huge impact. Lingyu Technology's continuous profit decline during this period was a clear indicator of this problem. Similar to the analogy that if you have an excellent game on your phone, would you still pay for a game like Tetris? Even if you did, it probably wouldn't be much. The mobile industry had been divided for the longest time, where everyone had similar games comparable to one another, and not one company had been able to monopolize the market. However, that was before that game was launched. New Era quickly gathered all players who were already bored with monotonous mobile games in the market. It revolutionized the perspective of users about the mobile games having monotonous content and poor real-time interactive capability. Since the inception of this game, their days began to become difficult. And from the looks of it, it's not only Lingyu Technologies that got the short end of the stick. While Jiang Chen mulled this over, he lightly tapping on the table with his finger. Perhaps it's high time to give this rookie a lecture. While thinking of this, Jiang Chen grimaced. He picked up the phone and called his old rival. Hello, Wang Zhang. Haha, how have you been? Okay, enough chit-chat. It's been a tough day for everyone. Don't you think we should do something? Shifting the public opinion, providing funds for development of hacks, exploiting New Era's vulnerabilities, hearing hackers to attack the server. There were still many things they could do to preserve their interests. Just be careful not to get caught in the act. Jiang Chen hung up the phone, his mouth curved in a sneer. Regardless how powerful future technology is, how would they be able to ward off attacks from all sides? Chapter 160. What's a National Husband? Driving to Guanglu Building, Jiang Chen closed the door and narcissistically looked in the car mirror before striding towards the front door. He was slightly embarrassed. As the president, he was fairly certain that he came to the company not more than 10 times. Most of the companies that chose Guanglu as their office space dealt with information technology, similar to future technology. The commonality between them all was that their lunch breaks were really short. It was only 1:30, but there was nobody to be seen in the lobby. Just as he was about to take the elevator up, he heard his name. It's Jiang Chen. Seems like it is him. Hearing the gossipy discussions, Jiang Chen dumbfoundedly looked over at the lobby reception. Two female receptionists whispered to each other as they giggled. When they noticed Jiang Chen looking over at them, they didn't stop but rather waved at him. Hey Ying, he looked over. Wait, let me send a Weibo. Weird. Jiang Chen muttered to himself as he got on the elevator. When the elevator stopped on the 12th floor, a proud smile surfaced on his face as the words future technology came into view. 3 months ago, future technology existed only in Zia Shiyu's Word document, but now it had already grown to this scale. He made a beeline towards Zia Shiyu's office. Sitting behind the front desk was a beautiful girl. Jiang Chen didn't recognize her. She was most likely one of the new hires. As for the previous 2 receptionists, they must have been transferred to other departments. Compared to when the company just started, the number of employees had already doubled. Considering the company's new project team, Zia Shiyu went ahead and rented the 13th floor to be used by the New Era team. When the beauty sitting at the front desk saw Jiang Chen, her eyes immediately lit up as she greeted him with a cheerful smile. Hello, President, welcome. What welcome? Jiang Chen casually said as he laughed and greeted her. Afterwards he asked, puzzled, You're new here, right? How did you know that I'm the president? On the left of her chest was a name tag that read Su Menqi. President, don't you know that you're extremely popular right now? With both elbows on the table, Su Menqi smiled. Her voice had a unique tone that made others feel peaceful. Zia Shiyu indeed had an eye for choosing people. With a talent like this, after some training, she'd be great in the sales department. Popular? Jiang Chen looked lost for a moment. While he knew he was considered a public figure, he didn't think he was popular. When he came out of the airport a few days ago, he didn't see any cameras pointed at him. Haha, when is the last time President went online? Oh, I remember you have a Weibo account, unless that one is fake, Su Menqi asked curiously. I do have Weibo, but how did you know? Jiang Chen took out his phone and logged into his long-forgotten account. He recalled that the only person he followed was Liu Yao. After that, he didn't bother sending out a single Weibo, but when his eyes landed on the numbers, he jumped. Followers 8.21 million, following 1. I am also your follower. Su Menqi shook her phone as coyly blinked her eyes. Everyone calls you national husband. Huh? Jiang Chen glanced over the rows of its symbols, dumbfounded. He randomly opened a few. It was either I want to make bobbies with you, or please notice me, I can warm the bed. Many passionate females added a selfie in the message, but most belonged to the type that had no Photoshop at all. Jiang Chen was secretly shocked at his popularity. But he would pass on the bobbies part. It made sense, however. Future technology was now valued at over $5 billion USD by Wall Street analysts, and this was the number given to the press a month ago. After the introduction and success of their revenue model, as well as the era-defining game New Era, future technology's value could easily have doubled. Without exaggerating, Jiang Chen's net worth was easily over 10 billion USD. Moreover, he was quite good-looking, and someone revealed that he was only 23 years old. New to the business, young and rich, and also single. Immediately, all spotlights were focused on him. Even without sending out a single Weibo, social media officials acted on their own and verified the account, making the number of followers explode. He was very curious. How did the Weibo officials know about his Weibo account? What do you think? It's not bad to be popular, right? Su Mengqi smiled happily at Jiang Chen. Not bad. He scratched his nose while laughing shyly. His sudden public stature felt surreal. Oh yeah. President, you still don't have a girlfriend, right? I'm also single. Do you think I can pursue you? Su Mengqi coyly said in a half-joking tone of voice. Just as Jiang Chen was about to reject her, a light cough transmitted from the end of the hall. Zia Shiyu was standing there. Her silky black hair was pulled up, and her black suit was paired with a white dress shirt, black stockings, and a black pencil skirt. She demonstrated the office lady vibe to perfection. Still stunning. Su Mengqi playfully popped her tongue out and immediately put her phone away. It was evident that Zia Shiyu was well respected in the company. Don't use your phone at work. Remember this next time. After giving Su Mengqi a brief lecture, Zia Shiyu glanced at Jiang Chen. She paused before saying, "Haven't seen you in a long time." Her tone somehow seemed to carry a hidden bitterness. Jiang Chen said apologetically, I was about to go find you." "Then follow me." Zia Shiyu nodded, then she turned around to lead the way to the office. After the two left, Su Mengqi patted her chest with relief. Her best friend walked over with a briefcase and gently tapped her. "Kiki, do you have a death wish? You dared to hit on the president in front of the CEO." And what could they? Su Mengqi's eyes suddenly popped out as she realized the relationship between the two. Her best friend Li Fengying whispered mysteriously, "Let me tell you since you're new and don't know. The reason why the CEO still hasn't found a boyfriend yet is because of President Jiang." What do I do then? Will CEO Zia make trouble for me over this? Su Mengqi began to feel anxious. She didn't actually plan to pursue Jiang Chen. It was only a joke. If she got in her boss bad books, it would not be good. Future Technology's salary and benefits were extremely competitive. Her best friend suddenly burst out laughing. "You dare to laugh? Give me back my Haagen-Dazs," Su Mengqi said with mock anger. "No, haha, don't worry, CEO Zia is not that type of person. She usually looks serious, but she's not the narrow-minded type to give you trouble." If Jiang Chen heard this word, he would have a shocked expression. Zia Shiyu did exactly that to fire him. So people do improve.